Hit that. Welcome to another episode of On the Block with Jen. I'm YouTube's bad girl and your favorite devil's advocate, Jen. Okay, good to see you guys here. I'm gonna say late. I'm not gonna say early because I was late, but thank you for waiting for me. You guys already know really quickly. Hi, if you're here for the first time. Hi, honey. Hi, welcome. Come on in. Sit down. Sit down now. Okay, you're gonna like it here. It's gonna hurt sometimes, but you're gonna like it here. I am on the block with Jen on all social media platforms: TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I am not hard to find. Okay, if you love what you hear here from me and my panelists, by all means, honey, support the show. I'm also on the block with Jen at Cash App. Do you see it scrolling on the bottom? Yeah, that's why that's scrolling on the bottom to remind you if you're catching the replay. Cash App is open 24 hours a day. If you like what you hear here, you're like, yo, I want to support that show. Hit me Cash App on the block with Jen, okay? Because believe it or not, this is work. This is work. It looks like fun, but it's work. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you don't want to do the Cash App, please feel free to hit me on the block with Jen right here in the comment section, right on the bottom right of the chat box. You know where you guys go in there and fight each other and fight me. There is a $sign. Click that $sign. I hear you better when there's money attached. My ear canals clear up, right? You guys have heard me say that before. My vision clears up. I no longer need to wear any of my glasses. I can see your comment better if it's attached to a super chat. That's how it works, right? Still a business. Although I enjoy your company, not everyone has to pay. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you want to support the show, help mama keep the church lights on, do it with your pocket. All right, guys. Tonight's subject is going to be a little touchy. Our lovely panelist, Lily from YB Limited, okay, sent me this. And I was like, this is interesting because I've heard it said a lot. A lot of men are saying no one cares about how we feel. No one cares about our mental health. You know, men kill themselves at a higher rate. Suicide is a higher rate for men, right? Nobody cares. We're getting fucked up the ass and with child support. Nobody cares about us. Nobody cares about the men in society. It's all women, 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 women. Women have, domestic violence programs, and women have government help, and women get custody of the children. No one cares about us men. Nobody cares, right? And I'm like, do the fellas have a point? Do I care about men? Let's explore this. But I'm gonna go a little deeper. I'm gonna ask the guys some tough questions, okay? The question and the topic. Oh shit, did she die? No Saint? Did she die? Because I just heard she had a heart attack. I know she died. Did she die? Ouch. All right. That's how we starting out. Okay, so back to the topic. Tonight's topic is, did men create the world that has no compassion for them? Did men create the world that has no compassion for them, right? Because at the end of the day, men want compassion, right? And men are claiming that society, and women especially, have no compassion, right? They work hard every day. They come home from work. Their wife is bitching. The kids are pulling on their pants. They got to go back and do it the other day. The whole world is on their shoulders, and no one seems to care. Okay, it's been said that some men commit suicide just when they lose custody of their children or have a lot of child support to pay. If they lose their job, you know what I mean? They're self-deleting, however you want to say it, stopping their clocks, suicide, whatever. This is what men are doing at a way higher rate than women, right? There's no compassion for men out here in society. I'm gonna ask some tough questions. I want to know, how do we get here? How do we get here? How do we get to a world, all right? Men run the world, rule the world, right? Some people may disagree, but from how I see it, my whole life, men rule and run the world. They rule, they run. They do the laws, okay? All the laws, they do the laws. Rarely, even when they're talking about women's wombs and vaginas, are women in the room. Men decide about abortion. This is a man's world, right? And we get to tag along and get on their nerves, right? And have their children and cook their meals. But this is a man's world. Don't get it twisted, right? Now, I don't know how anyone would argue that point with me, but I'm sure there will be a retort or a rebuttal or a contradiction. This is not a man's world. We shall see tonight. But I want to know how we collectively got to a point in time where men are neglected and rejected, right? Has the pendulum swung all the way to the other side and broken off? To now where men, if they're completely balls of emotion and mushy, we don't give a damn. We're like, whatever. Where's the line? Where do we draw the line? Men call other men simps, right? Man up. Shut the fuck up. Take it, right? I'm going to ask some questions tonight. I want to know how we got here. How did we get to a world where men are just overlooked, right? Regarding compassion and emotions and feelings. How did we get here? Right? Because there has to be a reason we're here. And why doesn't anyone care? Why isn't anyone listening? Who are men reaching out to? Who are men talking to? But more importantly, like I said, did men create the world that has no compassion for them? Ask some questions. Oh, she did die. Oh, rest in peace, Lisa Marie Presley. She lived an amazing life. All right. Okay, she lived an amazing long life. All right. So let's cheer her on her journey, on her peaceful journey into the next life, if there is one. Right. I really think there's energy exchanges. Right. So her energy went elsewhere. So rest in peace. You know what I heard the other day online that was really like, damn. I heard someone post, I forgot who it was that died. Someone had died. It wasn't Lisa Marie, obviously. But someone had died, and someone posted on Instagram, may they rest in whichever way they deserve. I was like, ooh. May they rest in whichever way they deserve. That's pretty deep, right? And it just takes me back to people that have died who were assholes, right? Because I think sometimes people are assholes, and some people feel like, well, death paves the way to all sins. I call bullshit. You were an asshole in life, you're an asshole dead too. Some people are like, no, the person's dead, so we have to feel bad. I'm not cut from that cloth. Okay, guys. 54 isn't that long. We are almost there. Who's 54? Is that how old? No. Lisa Marie. No. Lisa Marie. Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. I'm thinking Priscilla Presley. Wait a minute. I'm thinking her mama. What? Oh, no. That's early. I'm thinking she lived a long, fruitful life. I'm thinking Priscilla. Oh, my. No, say, get up here.
I know. When you said she lived a long life, I was like, damn, I'm almost there. Ain't that long.
What? No, that's not
the
a
daughter.
long life. I thought you were talking about her mama.
No, the one that married Michael Jackson and Nicolas Cage. And
I know who Lisa Marie is, but I don't know why. When I heard Presley, I automatically thought Priscilla. When they say heart attack, I'm like, well, Priscilla.
Yeah. And you know, when I saw the headline, I was like, is her mom even alive? And her mom is alive. I was like, oh shoot. I was like, her mom's still alive. And I guess she had a son that committed suicide, but she's got 3 daughters. I'm talking about Lisa Marie.
Yeah.
She still had 3 daughters. But yeah, I was shocked. Like a heart attack. Like it made me think, was she doing some drugs? I mean,
well, you know what it makes me think? Did you get vaccinated? That's my question now. I hear heart attack, and I'm like, did you get the booster? Was it the booster? Right?
I got 2 boosters in my dream last night. It must have been because we were talking about Josh yesterday.
Absolutely, but let me. I want to Google this really quickly.
Yeah.
Really quickly, because I want to make a point. Hearts. Check this out. Okay. So heart disease deaths, cardiovascular disease, about 697,000 people in the United States died from heart disease, right? In 2021, right? That's a lot of people every year. But you know, now we're attaching it to the vaccination, right? It's like, no, but I'm like, people die every year. You know what I mean? It's a lot of people die every year from different things. People would be surprised. Obesity, heart failure, a lot of things. People die in the hundreds of thousands annually, right? But you know, I was just joking about the vax. But no, I stand corrected, honey. I'm like, she lived a long, fruitful life. Let's celebrate. Oh, 54. That's why I was like, who's 54? What is going on? No,
Right.
That's sad. That's not a long life. Although I'm sure she was happy.
Oh yeah, she definitely, well, who knows what her life was like, be honest. But money wise, she had no stress, right?
Hey, oh, Abby said, thank you for this, Abby Celestine. Abby says she was on life support and her mom gave the doctor permission to pull the plug. There's no official statement on cause of death. Thank you for that.
But she did have, like you said, she did have a cardiac arrest last Thursday.
Okay, so she's been down for a while. The lovely and talented Lily from YB Limited. Hello, mama.
Hello. Hi, Block Babes.
Hello.
Hi.
What's going on? Yeah, I must have been under a rock because I did not know that she was sick or in the hospital or anything like that. So yeah, that really is heartbreaking, you know. But whew, yeah, well.
Yeah, listen, it teaches all of us, you better live out loud. That's what death does. I think death, birth, and weddings make people look at themselves like, what am I doing? What am I doing with myself, right? So you know, it's just a reminder. Make sure you're doing what you want to do with who you want to do it. Live out
Good
loud.
point.
Right? Live out loud. But it's like every time someone has a baby or every time someone dies, it's like, oh shit. What am I doing?
You know, I came to that conclusion about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. You know, I have a lot of elders in my life that I look up to, right? So they taught me how to age and how not to fear death and how to live, right? So I lost my fear of death and I replaced it with a yearning for living. So I know that the next moment is not guaranteed. So that's why I choose to live life to the fullest while I can. Live it in the moment. Right. Try not to worry about things that don't even, like, tomorrow doesn't even exist. So why am I worried about it? Yesterday doesn't exist. So why am I worried about it?
Right, you know? Right.
So like I look at it like this: if you got one foot in yesterday and one foot in tomorrow, you're shitting on today.
Right.
So
yeah, and I'd like to say, as a person who up until the last 5 or 6 years had a tremendous problem of always thinking about the future, you know, always worrying about what I'm going to do in the future, always planning for the future. And I talked to my sister, and that was a problem. And, you know, and I'm better today than I used to be. But sometimes, you know, and so when things like this happen, you know, dying at 54, and what Jen said, I'm working on it still. I'm working on saying, okay, you know, and it's a process though, because when you grow, when you sit there and you're always thinking about the future and worrying about things that you can't control, it's a real waste of time. But you're in the moment and you don't, it's hard to break that. It really is hard to break that. Sometimes it's hard to live in that moment. But
I mean, it took me a while. It's a process. People always say if you're stressed, it's one of two things. Either you're worried about the future or you can't get over something that happened in the past.
Yeah.
So you're literally in between that. If you were stressed, think about it. Anything that stresses you out, either you worried about the future or you didn't get over something that happened in the past. And when I ask myself that, like, I'm like, okay, I'm stressed right now. Jen, what's the problem? It's like, oh, because I'm worried about such and such, or this date coming up, or this way. But you're living right. The future is not here yet, and the past is long gone.
Yeah. It's a practice.
Yeah, you have to get used to doing that. But I'm like, you know, I'm all about celebrate life. I'm glad I thank you for waking me up out of that, because I'm like, oh, Priscilla Presley, oh God, you know what I mean? But no, Priscilla Presley looks amazing for her age.
She does.
So, oh, you know, oh, that's all right. Well, R.I.P. Lisa Marie. Whoa, all right. So tonight's topic. All right.
Let's get to it.
Okay. Did men create the world that has no compassion for them? I think we can agree that, you know, men don't get the most compassion, right? But did they create the world that has no compassion for them? I'm gonna give you just a couple examples and pass the mic. When I hear things like man up, right? We hear toxic masculinity, and then women follow men. So then they start raising their children in their minds. Well, men say you got to man up, right? And men say this is what it takes to be a man. So then women start passing that down to that little boy, right? And you start talking at little boys versus talking with them. Do you notice that? Parents talk at little boys, what you're supposed to do, who you're supposed to be, right? We don't talk like that to little girls, but we talk at little boys. Some boys, when they're really, really little, they're getting talked at, right? So already from when they're little, there's no compassion, right? I'm not talking with you. I'm talking at you because you're going to grow up and be a man, and men are supposed to do X, Y, and Z. So little boys are already like, oh shit, well, I ain't got time for feelings and tears because I'm supposed to be coming into this world where I'm a man and I'm running shit, right? Things like that. Also things like when little boys get molested, right? Little boys get molested, teenagers or whatever. What do men, not women, what do men say? Well, I wish I had that teacher in school. Where was she when I was around, right? That's men, right? Dismissing that this little boy's life is now ruined going forward sexually. He's going to look at women a certain way. He's going to feel a certain way about his body, right? That's men saying that. Women don't do that. Men say, oh, atta boy, where was that teacher when I was around? Is that another way where men are creating this world? And I'll stop there. I have more, but I want to pass the mic. What say my panel?
Huh. Well, let me put a little context on this and where where this topic derived from. I was listening to a video last night after we got off, and you know, I'm getting ready for bed, take off my makeup, all that good stuff. And so the video, I saw the title, so I was like, I'm open to hearing what he has to say about this. You know, that particular content creator, I had mixed feelings about, but I can listen to someone I have mixed feelings about. So it was about, you know, basically what you said, no one cares about us, right? No one cares about us men. So it started off to me very heartwarming and just pulling at the heartstrings. But like I told you, I watched the full video. Oh, it took a turn.
I'm not surprised.
Oh, yeah, it took a turn. And it took a turn from him explaining and looking for empathy, which he was getting from it. Now, if he would have stopped it right there, but then it went to the women bashing, and it's your fault, and you are not, and you bitches, and I don't know how many bitches I heard, and then I was just like, oh, whoa, give me my damn empathy back then. Okay, yeah, I'll take that back. I'll take my empathy and give it to someone else who appreciates it, right? So, whew, okay, so I'll say this: is it a man's world? It's a white man's world.
Okay. That's you, No Saint.
Yeah. So, and I definitely want to hear from No Saint on this particular topic, because that's how I look at it. I look at it as a white man's world that Black men have benefited from. Okay. And I'm gonna give you an example of that. It's like with the LGBT community. It's for the white LGBT community, but Black people still benefit. It trickles down, right? Not the full benefits, but you get partial benefits.
Okay, Dave Chappelle spoke on that. Yeah.
Right. So I feel like Black men get partial benefits from that. They take it, they run with it. And then when there's backlash from it, then it's like, oh, you know, and what I mean by is the laws, they agree with those laws. You know, we saw when the abortion laws were passed and everything was overturned and everything like that. It was like very hate-filled toward the women, like, and it's like, but women don't get pregnant by themselves, and so it becomes one of those things where it's like, this is how I look at it. You can't take the positive and not accept the negative as well. Right? But when you make a bed, you got to lie in it, and some people will argue that a lot of this goes back to slavery and has trickled down till today. When it comes to, I'm the man of the house, but and I feel like another part of that is, I'm gonna be real with you. From what I was listening to the full video, I feel like a lot of that pain was coming from feeling like they're losing their women, or losing control of their women, and losing hold of their women. That's what it sounded like to me, because it was a lot of that talk. The independent woman and feminism ruined marriages and ruined families, and that's why a lot of my and mind you, he made it all about his friends, but it sounded so personal, It was crazy. It was like,
so he was asking for a friend thing,
and it was total like, I'm saying this on behalf of my friends. You bitch. And I was like, oh, well, I'm sorry. That sounds like a lot of, So he was saying, like, a lot of his friends have lost their children and their girlfriends, and that, oh, now these women want to have options, and this and that, and it's like, I'm feeling like a lot of that pain is because of a topic that we covered recently, where they can't handle the modern woman, So I feel like there's a few things going on here at the same time that can be dissected. I feel like we can do that tonight, So that's why I wanted to bring it to this panel.
Okay, well, thank you for bringing it to the panel, because it's a great subject. I've thought about it, but the thoughts were fleeting. I'm not going to lie. I confess. I don't really think of compassion when I think of men in general as a whole. Now, any man in my life is like, oh, I'm all in. But generally, I don't automatically think compassion in men, right? Maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. We'll find out tonight. Lily, you went to race quick. We usually simmer a little bit. It usually comes in about an hour, 15 minutes. We jumping right in. All right, let's do it then. Hello, Haran DeMarco. Welcome, sir.
Hello.
Hi. Are you okay? I want to be compassionate to all the men on the panel tonight. Are you good?
I'm good. I'm great. I wouldn't tell you if I wasn't, but I'm good. I'm great.
See? Okay. We're
I'm
gonna
just a fucking guy like that.
Okay. We're gonna touch on that. We're gonna touch on that. Lily, you said that it's a white man's world, but black men benefit, right? Black men benefit. So, and you spoke about abortion. When we think about laws and rights, right, that I would consider, I'm sorry, are anti-women. And now a lot of people are gonna be like, nah, but I think abortion is anti-women in the sense of, let me qualify, in the sense of, I don't think any man or any woman should be telling any man or any woman what to do with their body. That's the only reason I'm saying it. I don't think any man or any woman has a right to tell another human being, this is what I think you should do with your body, and we're going to sign it into law, right? There are no laws like that for men. There are no laws that say you can't get a vasectomy, right? There's just laws. There's not a bunch of women in a room, in a boardroom, you know what I mean, with the little suits on saying, men, I am writing into law, you can't get a vasectomy. Just be careful when you're having sex. That's all we got for you, but you cannot get a vasectomy, right? So, Haran DeMarco, what say you?
I just want to make sure that we all understand that while these laws were put into place, the one who looked like me was occupying the walls of the Supreme Court.
Oh, we stayed on race tonight. All right.
I was like, am I the only one that feel like that? Because when I think of the laws, I think of older white men.
I mean, I was too busy trying to not, get my ass beat from drinking from the wrong fountain and getting to be free. This really has nothing to do with me. Although I benefited from a few things and suffered from a few things. But it is what it is. With that being said, no, I don't think it's okay, to some degree, yeah. men have dug themselves into a hole per se. I wouldn't say a hole, but overall, genetically speaking, our biological imperative, men have always been somewhat disposable.
What? Always been what?
Men have been always somewhat disposable, while women and children are basically, women and children and the elderly are basically more important than strong, healthy men. Because strong, healthy men, definitely during the days of tribes and so on and so forth, we were tasked to guard the weak, the ones who couldn't necessarily defend themselves. So yeah, there's a bit of biology connected to this, but there's also a degree of listen, feminism, the feminist movement happened. Men came to the table and they gave in to a number of things, and a number of those things that they gave into created this world that we're in now. They should have had the foresight to say, we must evolve with this world that we're helping to create. Because if we're going to give women the autonomy and the capabilities to go out there and do for themselves, you didn't think that after a while they would see you would basically push your own self into obsolescence? If your entire basis as a man and concept as a man is based on providing and doing so on and so forth and living in the traditional sense, if you allow women to do for themselves a lot of the traditions that were expected by men, prior, if they're able to do that, build their own bank account, so on and so forth, basically be independent. You didn't think that at some point in time you would either have to evolve or you would have outgrown your own usefulness. I don't think we took the time out to really have the foresight as to what happened. I think we just gave women what they wanted in hopes that they would shut up. So it's usually what we do as men, and it came back to bite us in the ass, which usually happens when we give in to women's demands often.
Okay, so I'm a push back, and I'm talking about a big
push.
Okay.
I'm talking about a big linebacker push.
Hey, look, listen, there's days this week where I was a coon, then I was a male feminist. So what am I tonight?
You're tonight, you're a chauvinist. You chauvinist.
There you go. I was everything a man could possibly be within the span of 72 hours. Who can do it?
Welcome to YouTube with your face. Welcome to YouTube with your face. That's why we on camera. Welcome to YouTube with your face. So I'll say this. I don't care about the chauvinism. I think I'm a female chauvinist pig. Like I don't like, I don't think women should be in law enforcement. I don't think they should be in the military. I sure as hell don't think they should be firemen. Women hate that I say that. I don't think that they should be. I know women are strong too, and that I don't think that they should be. So much so, no lie. If I'm lying, I'm flying. I was in a car accident. 2 women came and they were supposed to put me in a thing. I said, I'm not moving. I want men to come. I want the firemen to come. And I fucking waited there with my neck jacked until 2 men came to put me on a gurney and pick me up off the thing. I'm not lying. I'm not lying. I didn't trust the women. I was so shooken up. I did not trust those 2 women to strap me in the thing and pick me up and put me in the ambulance. I just didn't. I was freaked out and I was like, I need to see men right now. I need to see men. I don't. And they got the men and the firemen came and put me in the thing. I was like, no, that's how chauvinistic I am. So I'm bad. So I don't care about your chauvinism and women should shut up, right? Sometimes women should shut up. Sometimes women should shut up. We talk a lot. But what I'm going to push back on is when you were talking about you didn't have the foresight or whatever, I'm still going to say men didn't have the foresight of how they were treating other men. That's what I think, because men are the ones that are smacking each other in the ass and in the head and pushing each other. And this is what you're supposed to be. This is what it takes to be a man. And you're a simp if you do X, Y, and Z. Men attack men way worse than I think women attack men. As far as being disposable and how it's women and children first, right? Like the Titanic, the famous Titanic, women and children first, right? I think it's more about who is better equipped physically and mentally to put up with hardship, right?
Yeah.
Men are.
Yeah.
Men
Like,
are.
if we're in a dangerous situation, Jen, if you and I are in a dangerous situation, who do you think is more liable to get out of that dangerous, life-threatening situation? Just looking at both of us visually. Okay.
I'm
Who do you
getting
think
out.
you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure you would. You probably
Right
have
now.
you probably put
Excuse me.
you probably put your foot on my face and push me out the way, and so on and so forth. But it's okay. I'm still built enough to find a way out. You know what I mean? Because I'm structurally built to have a chance.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You, on the other hand, you could still get out, but the math kind of says, it depends on what the situation is. Now, knowing that, if I'm in if I'm in a life-threatening situation, and I know I got kids in the place and women and so on and so forth, I'm making sure that they get out, man. Because guess what? If anyone dies in that situation, and I'm outside saying like, "Damn, that's fucked up," how does that really make me look, man? Like, damn, 3 kids died, man. That's a bitch.
So going back to, I'm telling you, I'm gonna put it on the guys. I want the guys to really look at themselves. I do agree, though. There's not a lot of compassion for men. I do agree that men get ignored when they're like, I'm stressed out, or not even. You know what I mean? They don't get to tell people they're stressed out. I get that. I totally get that, because it's like, how dare you? You're a man, right? We look at what Chris Rock said that one time, and everybody went wild, right? Chris Rock said it was a joke, right? But there's a lot of truth in the joke. Look who we have here. Hello, Brienne.
Hey, Brienne.
Hello, man.
How are you, darling? Welcome.
With the nice voice.
Oh man, that voice.
That voice, honey.
Brienne's coming to soothe, because I'm not soothing with my voice. So Brienne's coming to soothe. She's good balance. So there was a statement or joke that Chris Rock said, but Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle are stellar at talking about real life and making it funny, right? So Dave Chappelle's infamous line, "A man is only loved if he can provide." And everybody went wild, and all the men were co-signing. They were like, "That's right. We're only loved if we can provide." But on the other side, on the flip side, are women also not only loved if they can be attractive and bear children and of a certain age, right? Doesn't that happen on the flip side? And I'll pass the mic after this question. Is it a bad thing that men are only loved if they can provide? If a man's role is protector, provider, and he can't do either, then how else can he be a man? Now, I'm not a man. We have men on the panel. Maybe you guys can answer that. But if you can't protect or provide, how else are you going to present as a man? Because you have a penis? How else are you going to do it?
Well, that can be, customized to the kind of relationship that you and your partner have agreed to, because not every relationship is the same. Maybe you two figured out how you can contribute. I'm pretty sure you can do something. A strong back and stamina go a long way. So, hey, you got to work with all your fucking cards here. You know what I mean? But the point here that I'm making is that, it's very funny that you said that, Jen, that, a lot of guys, they were co-signing the statement that men are only loved if they can provide. But however, a lot of men are upset now because the ability to provide has been taken away from them, and women are able to provide for themselves. So now's the opportunity to be something more than just a provider, right? So you kind of got what you wanted. You know what I mean? Like, if you actually sat down and really looked at it, like, well, here's your chance, buddy, to be more than a provider. You know what I mean? So, but now it's kind of on you again, where it's just like, did you ever think about what you were outside of just a provider? And this is what I keep saying time and time again. Your self-actualization is important. Yes, I can provide. Yes, I can protect. Yes, I can do all these things. I'm much more than that, though. I'm versatile in my, in my manners and so on and so forth. I have many layers. I can pivot. I can do whatever. But I understand that, yes, as a man, certain things are expected of me, such as providing and protecting, or just as a basic functioning human being.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You know, you should be able to do certain things, and certain life skills should be on point.
Well, House of Matrix says, strongly disagree. Women are loved multiple reasons. Men are only loved for a few things. House of Matrix, you can either panel up or you can give me some examples in the chat of how what those other reasons are, since women have many more reasons.
This was towards No Safe. I wanted to be clear what I wanted to hear from No Safe. Because I see he wanted to go next. Because I've been seeing, this wasn't the first video I've seen like this, or the first statement I've been seeing black men, because that's mostly who I'm Facebook friends with and follow. So I was wondering, is this mostly happening with the black men having this feeling of not feeling like any type of compassion, or I'm just assuming, saying, because you're our resident white guy, that you know more white people than we do. Like, so I just...
It's a fair assessment. I don't think that was racist. I don't think that was racist. I think that was a fair assessment.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
So, like, are you hearing these same conversations?
Yeah. Listen, I think it's just that's across, this is the thing. I got a few things I want to go into. I want to talk about, because Haran was just talking about men are complaining because now we don't, now we don't provide. I think men, the people that are saying we're only wanted because we can provide, I think really I think the thing is because things have changed. See, if we were back, like, you remember Big Truck, he wanted to go get women over there that would strictly depend on him for his resources. Why? Because you have the opportunity to be a lot lazier if they depend on you for what you provide. If that's all they need you for, and you get the benefits of having a woman, have kids, maybe clean the house and cook for you. So I think the real disappointment is the fact that it's evened out, and now women have more choices, and now women don't necessarily need you. So now you got to work on yourself, and you've got to become more than just that bag that woman has to depend on you, So, but as far, I think it's even. I think they're I hear people, that have been through divorces and the same complaints, will dog curse women, and that's not, that's never been my style, because I try to look at the whole picture. But I don't think it's just in the black YouTube streets or the black spaces.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's just men. Brienne, what say you? Did men create the world that has no compassion for them?
No. Create the world, yes, but create a world with no compassion, no. I think it's really ingrained in a lot of men to hold back their feelings because biologically it's not attractive. So you want to hold back your feelings or talk to other men about your feelings. Mm-hmm. The other thing was, I was starting to do notes. So it was about if women need men or not, and we're always going to need each other. Women are going to need to procreate, men are going to need to hold up society. So we create a world where it seems like we don't need each other, but every single time I talk to women getting to their 30s, 40s, and 50s, the first thing they're crying about is wanting a man for a family and children. So those women I speak to, maybe the first 20, 30 years of their adulthood, they didn't need a man, but eventually they always revert back to what their biological nature is.
Interesting. So when you say it's biological that men don't show their feelings, don't you think outside of biology, other men don't want to see other men be soft, quote unquote, simps and what have you?
No, I think it's women that don't want to see the feelings of men because it turns them off. So if you're thinking about somebody that you're going to, create life with and protect you, you don't want to see them in a vulnerable state like that. I've heard of women, even after someone loses like a family member, they don't want to see their man cry. So you would send that particular man off to other... Huh?
I'm just saying, people that think that way are ridiculous, but go ahead.
Yeah, I never heard that. Wow.
I've heard that a lot. And pretty much their first initial reaction is, okay, you want to protect them and help them and baby them. But on the back end, something biological is telling you, okay, this is turning me off. So you want to send them to their brother, their dad, someone else that can understand their feelings. And talking with, like I said, a lot of men, they inherently usually know that. Like, okay, if I'm going to be emotional, I'm going to go to the bathroom, I'm going to get myself together in the car, or I'm going to go to other men. So men obviously wouldn't be respected by other men, but since men in general know they have to hold back their feelings, it's easier to talk to another man about that. You don't typically want your girlfriend, someone you're seeing, or even your wife to see it. So most men will resort to a way where they can make sure they're not being seen in that light.
Interesting. So I'm gonna push back just a little bit because I don't know. No, Saint, you could qualify what happens in the white neighborhoods,
right?
No, in Latin and Black neighborhoods, the men are very, very hard on their boys. Haran, we spoke about that as well. We have to be extra. The men in our families have to be extra men in this white world. They got to be extra, even I would say hyper masculine, right? Because they have more at stake, right? So I know my father was that way. He was relentless with my brother. I know, Haran, you've experienced similar things. So, again, I asked the question, did men create that world? Because trust me, the women in our families, they coddle to the point of, sometimes it's repulsive, right? But the men in my family, I know, and I'm sure in Black families as well, the men are hard on the boys, real hard on the boys. But I want to ask the men on the panel, do you feel more comfortable going to a woman with your feelings, or do you feel more comfortable going to a man with your feelings, or do you feel like he's going to think you're a punk? What say you?
And real quick, to me, ain't nothing more sexy than a man that is masculine and will beat a dude's ass on the street, but can be vulnerable with you only. Like, that's sexy.
Let me tell you something. That Denzel tear in the movie Glory, almost got it tatted on my ass. Okay,
it's sexy.
That Denzel tear in the movie Glory, I was like, to me, it was the most masculine thing. But I'm a weirdo, so don't take my word for anything. Going back to what the men think about going to other men, and also how men are hard on you in groups, sports. Get in there, take that off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, the men yelling.
Like, I don't know. I'll speak for from my perspective. So yeah, definitely when I was growing up, and that's changed over time, but and that's changed in even professional sports, really, to be honest with you. I remember, first of all, NFL football used to be a lot harder game. I mean, it was like you come over the middle, Ronnie Lott was going to light you up. And then they would get a concussion. And you hear, oh, so-and-so's got a concussion. And you think, okay, he'll be back next game. Those days are gone because they know more about concussions now, right? But as a kid growing up, it was kind of the same thing. Like, if you got hurt, you were supposed to try to like rub some dirt on it, stop crying. I remember coaches, be tough. You got to stop crying. I think we've grown a little bit at it. Now, me personally, I feel a lot more comfortable going to someone I'm involved with my feelings, and I'm not embarrassed. We grew up, you're not supposed to cry and all that stuff. I've told this story. My grandfather didn't ever tell, he could never say he loves. I remember when I told my grandfather I loved him, I was probably 21. And he was getting older, and I was somewhere and he was showing me some equipment. I said, Grant, hey, I love you. And he took a step back. He didn't know how to handle it. And that's when it clicked. That's why my dad doesn't say it to me, because he was brought up and that was kind of a barrier. Right. And that's when I've said, I've changed it to where I have no problem telling my sons I love them. I don't, it's not a big deal because I grew up understanding where that came from for my dad. But as far as crying goes, yeah, I cry. I mean, I cried in front of every girlfriend I've had. If I had,
Really?
I have.
Okay.
It wasn't a big deal. But in front of guys, like you said, it's happened, but it's got to be like a real close, like, somebody I grew up with friend where we're talking and we, and I've had, but it might be different in my community.
Okay, so you've gone to women with your.
What's that?
So you've gone to women with your emotions.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's honest. And as far as, but I think, again, and to what Lily was saying when we're talking about, I want to get back to the whole thing about, did we create this problem? So I don't want, if you can come back to me for that, when it comes to laws, and when she was saying about older white men making the laws and everything like that. I think just being in these different panels that I go to, I've realized more and more that being white, although those laws that those rich white men made weren't necessarily for me either, because it was for rich people that own property, I do realize how much more weight I have off my shoulders, because I do not have to navigate through this white world. It's kind of laid out for me. You know what I mean? I don't have to think as much as like someone like Haran and other people. Yeah, you know. So I benefit from those same laws a lot more than, say, Haran, but I think we do benefit from some of these things. But what I want to say about the laws real quick, because I don't want to forget this. So did men create the world that has no compassion for them when it comes to laws and the way we're treated in courts? Yes, but I think the reason is because when it comes to laws, people don't look at it. It's not, unless it's a real astute judge that wants to take the time. I think laws are really rigid, especially when it comes like to divorce and money. It's like, how much do you make? Okay, here it is. You know, these are the laws. It's rigid. It's real rigid. So there's really no flexibility. There's no flexibility in the laws, unless you want to go to a mediator, and then you can kind of make your own separation and your own, you know. But when it comes to the laws, yeah, I think they're just so rigid that it feels like, man. But that's just a reaction to the fact that women had no rights before, and men had all the power. So women were the ones trying to hold on to bad marriages because they didn't want to be viewed in society as, you know, once you get divorced and then they're out in the street, or they don't have the means to support themselves and their kids, and then they're in a hard situation, you know. But anyway, I just want to say that.
All right, let me read these super chat real quick before we pass the mic, because I still want to hear from Haran. House of Matrix, thank you for the super chat. House of Matrix says, I tell a female friend or one of my guys my problems before I tell my girlfriend. You can never show weakness in front of your girlfriend. Okay, Don Levon, thank you for the super chat. Don Levon says, then I just tuned in. I was just wondering, has Haran cussed anyone out yet? No, he has not, but we did discuss it in the beginning. He hasn't cussed anybody out tonight.
I was just going to say the chat's getting kind of crazy and calling me names. I never said you couldn't show emotion. I said for the most part, you as a man, from the men I've heard from, they don't want to do that, exactly like the super chat just said. You don't want to show that type of emotion in front of your girlfriend until you've had time to work through your emotions and feelings. So the name calling is ridiculous. I'm a stay-at-home married wife, so whatever they have to say, they don't have the same experiences I do. And I've also spent time in the court system with multiple men, and I'm in contact with 5 men who are currently still trying to see their children. So when I see this from a different end, I see it from the legal aspect as well.
Okay.
Oh, she ran.
Okay.
No, she doesn't deserve to be called out her name.
Yeah, no, yeah.
No one does. No one does. We established that, and I welcome all opinions here. They don't have to match mine.
Right.
Okay. We appreciate all opinions. Haran, what say you about that, the upbringing, especially in our communities, how hard men are on their little boys? And do you feel comfortable going to a woman before you feel comfortable going to a man and telling him, I feel weak right now?
Well, I don't necessarily really go to anyone.
Oh, okay.
I don't if things occur in my life, unless I want to bounce ideas off of somebody, you know. Like, for instance, like 2 months ago, I had a heart attack. Nobody knew about it.
2 months?
Yeah, 2 months ago. No, in the summer, I had a heart attack, and I just went to the hospital, left, and been done it. You know what I mean?
You remind me of my father. My goodness.
It's none of your fucking business. And so, you know what I mean? But, you know, if I have to bounce an idea off of somebody, or if, you know, if I'm thinking about something, or if I'm, so on. Yeah, but I do be wanting to cry around tax time though. America hates single people. That's
Right.
it's a very hurtful time. You know what I mean for me. You know what I mean? But outside of that, it's just like no, I don't. No, I don't. And if that is your thing as a man or as a person, that is your thing. But
So,
it's just not my thing. I'm not compelled to do that.
Haran, are you not a man? Okay, are you not a man that has little to no compassion for other men?
Oh, it depends.
On
It depends on. Okay, I don't entertain a crying motherfucker. If you just constantly every time I see you, you tell me about a problem, and I'm like, okay, I'm waiting to hear what are you going to do about it? What's the solution? Do you need help? So on. Don't come to me tomorrow with the same fucking problem. I'm gonna close the door in your face. Okay, we just talked about this yesterday. It's about progress, man. I'm not here to enable you. I'm not your shoulder. Go to your woman for that, man. Like I'm not your shoulder. This isn't group therapy. If you need some help, if you need some assistance, not a problem. Outside of that, nah, man.
See, you know what? I feel that men, okay, when you're dealing with the dynamics of a relationship, right? For me, I look at it as like the masculine energy and the feminine energy. So that energy can come with any sex, okay? I feel like both energies are needed for humans just in general, right? So like that's why we had, like, for me, like I have my girlfriends and then I got my man, and then I got like some guy friends that can give me different perspectives from that perspective. And then there's things I can bounce off with my girlfriends that a man don't want to hear and won't understand. Right. So I think it's healthy to have both dynamics, especially when you're in a relationship, because the relationship that I was in the longest, I told somebody yesterday that was, I think, one of the biggest issues is that he didn't have any male friends. He didn't have any friends, period. And I was like, this man needs to meet at least two guys, like just two good guys that are emotionally stable and mentally stable, that he can, like Haran say, bounce some things off of, because it like because the man can tell him probably the same thing I'm saying, but in a way that he can hear it, because it all comes down to tone sometimes too. I mean, it really does. Like a man will prefer to hear a male speaker over a woman speaker. Like, it's just how it is. They're just going to respond better. So I just feel like both energies are needed, especially in a relationship.
What was the main problem then?
I'm sorry?
Because you had made a good point that he needed males around. And from your view, what was the main problem? He was going to you first, and he didn't seem to, I guess, process the things. Like, what was the main issue of him not having male friends?
So he didn't have a way of processing anything. See, the thing, he was just relying on his own thoughts, and a lot of times we can blow things out of proportion. Because, like, when you're the one that's in a situation, you're more emotionally attached to whatever it is, And I have those outlets. I have those people to tell me, bitch, you crazy. Go back in there and apologize to that man. Girl, you being crazy today. Like, all he did was X, Y, and Z. And you blew that shit right out of proportion. The whole stabbing him part, you could have left that out. So, like, he needed somebody, in my opinion, to help him process things from a masculine standpoint. That's what I was.
Lily, I wanted to kind of piggyback on what you said. I know the words masculine and feminine are supposed to mean two different things, right? But I do think that those words are overused and misused, right? There are times in my life, in my relationship, where it's like I have to be completely feminine, right? And sitting in my feminine and being, nurturing and mothering, whatever that entails, cooking, cleaning. I I like doing those things, right? I like being a woman, right? But then I have a whole other side where some would consider, well, that's masculine. And my attitude is like, fuck off, because I think every human being needs both sides, right? But we feel like if it's born female, it has to be feminine. If it's born male, it has to be masculine. And I think that's a mistake we make. I think it holds women back and it makes women weak, and it holds men back and it makes them too strong. In my opinion, that is my opinion, because there have been times where I've come to my man's defense just like another man would, right? Or there comes a time where I protected, you know what I mean, my children the way a man would. Or if you have to change a tire or move something and there's no man around, what are you gonna do? Well, I gotta sit in my feminine, and I can't fix this lock, or I can't fix this busted pipe. I'll just wait for a man to come. So I agree with you 100% that it's important that people are in tune with both sides, because if we stamp something, it's born female, it's feminine, I think, in my opinion, you render that person helpless when it's needed, when those emotions are needed. Like if you tell a man you're supposed to always be masculine, he's not going to be able to relate to his children. He's not going to be able to relate to his woman. He's not even going to be able to relate to his mother. So I just think it's a slippery slope, and we have to be careful with those tags. Go ahead.
Now, 1 second though, I just want to say that whenever I'm in the presence of my daughter, I hug and kiss on my daughter consistently. She probably gets sick of it. Even I talk about my daughter a lot with Jen. You know what I mean? And I tell my daughter I love her every single 5 minutes.
Okay, let me ask you this. Hold on, let me ask you this.
Wait 1 second. Now I'm sure this is going to turn out to her finding a man who's most likely the complete antithesis of me, because she's used to a certain thing, which is fine. You know what I mean?
My question to you, Haran, I don't hear you talking that you have a son, but if you had a son, would you do that too? Would you kiss him on the cheek?
I would.
Would you kiss him?
But I'd be afraid for that boy. If Haran was.
Would you tell your son you love him?
I have a nephew, and the other day I saw him after a couple of years, and I looked at him and I was like, yeah, next time I come around, we're gonna be doing some gym work.
See,
be doing some things.
But I'm gonna tell you that I'm the same way. I know this about me. I'm very clear. You know, when I was with my ex, I was like, "What kind of parent do you think I would be?" Right? Because I was thinking about adopting. He said, "You really want to know the answer to that question?" And I was like, "I asked you the question, so give me the answer." He says, "I think if we had a boy," I said, "I think he would love you, and if we had a girl, she wouldn't be able to stand you." Right. And because you know, I've always been with older guys, and he had 5 grandkids, 1 boy, 4 girls. And he saw that I treated them different. Like the boys, I'm just like, oh, just make sure they're alive. Feed them and make sure they're alive. You know, with the girls, I'm like, put some Vaseline on your lips. Make sure you put some lotion on your lips. I get on their last nerve, you know, so.
No, I mean, I understand that. I didn't have daughters, but I know if I had a daughter, I wouldn't treat them the same. However, I think that we need to get over this, and I don't know what it's going to take, because we're talking about differences of being brought up differently and passing on. But we need to get over the fact that you can tell your son you love them and give them a kiss, and it has nothing to do with. It's not going to change their sexuality one way or the other. It's not going to make, you know. I think men in this country, many men have that thing where, you know, they're scared to show that affection to, even if it's their own son. You know what I mean?
I'll be honest with you. Like my daughter, she wants to one day own her own animation studio, and I do plan on investing in it. You know, I mean, put my money into getting the studio, getting whatever she needs. Now, if she was a boy, I'd have been like, "Hey, you better hustle and get that money and find an investor." I wouldn't have gave him a dime.
This guy,
but I rooted him on. I didn't say rooted him on though.
Yeah, this guy in the chat. I didn't say kiss them, deep tongue them in the mouth. I was talking about like a kiss on the cheek. He's like, it depends on where you kiss them.
Right.
So going to like laws and stuff, right? And going back to the question, did men create the world that has no compassion for them? When we look at child support, I think child support is grossly unfair. I had an amazing stream with Christopher Higdon, and he broke down how he got out of paying child support. Not taking care of his children. He takes care of his children. Matter of fact, he has custody. Great dad. But he explained how child support is illegal. I mean, it's very, very complex. You have to see the video. It is the child support stream on my channel. But even with child support, men made those laws. Because men made those laws. Right?
Yeah.
So isn't that part of creating a world where there's no compassion for a man's finances? Women didn't do that.
Right.
Women just abuse it and use it.
Well, that's with any, right? That's with any law. And that's what I'm saying about it being rigid. Yeah, men made those laws. And I think in general, the lawyers or the people that made those laws had good intentions. But every law, when people talk about, well, like, let's just take the PPP law that came out. People abused the hell out of it. I think it was a good thing. But people are going to take any, and that's what I'm talking about, not having that flexibility, not taking a look at individual cases where they just flat out make a law and this is how it is. And you end up, they don't say, well, let's take a look at this person's, what's going on and how this person's handling his business. No, or maybe they have a way to work things out. They don't look at it like that. So yeah, men definitely made the bed that we are sleeping in. But no crime, right?
To answer Annalicia, you said, wait, what? Men don't pay enough child support. What are you talking about? So here's what I'm talking about, because I think we get confused sometimes when we're all talking. Everyone here on the panel, as well as the chat, everyone's talking from their own experience, I would hope, right? I'm not talking about the general public. I'm talking about my experience. I have dated men who were paying a fucking hell of a lot of child support in the thousands of dollars. I don't know what your experience is, Annalicia. I can only
she thinks everyone experience is the collective experience.
Okay,
she's not saying that they're later. She's not saying that there's nuance.
Okay, well, I know that everyone's experience is not the collective experience. Okay, I've been in relationships with men that were paying thousands of dollars.
I know men are in their 50s still paying child support for children that they're in their 30s. Like
not $100, not $100, thousands of dollars, where it interfered with their lifestyle. There were things that they could not do because they were paying thousands of dollars in child support. So I don't know what men you're referring to that don't pay enough child support. With that said, maybe there are men who aren't paying enough child support, but we can only speak from our experience. And that was my experience. And that's why I'm saying it, because I've seen
She probably thinks every guy pays $100 a month when they're a kid.
Okay, well, let me just say, I think $2,000 a month for child support is a lot of money. That's what I'm.
Well, this is my thing. I'm going to do whatever it takes for my kids to live with the least amount of difference if I'm out of the house. Okay. So in other words, because I was in the process of getting a divorce, and my whole thing was, I was trying to think of ways to because I live in half the time I'm living in a fire department. I was trying to figure out ways where I wouldn't have to get another separate household with all those bills you have to pay, right? Double up the bill, because it was going to take a toll on my kids. Right. And so I was even thinking about, well, maybe if I get a camper, maybe I can park in the Walmart parking. I was literally stressed out, not because I can live in a small bedroom. It didn't matter. But I was thinking about my kids. I did not want my kids. I wanted my kids to get through school without dropping below the standard that I had set up. Right. And if that meant me sacrificing, that meant me sacrificing. The problem is what Annalicia is saying is there's plenty of people out there that are trying to dodge that and really are trying to step away from that. And that's where the laws come in. But the laws are pretty, at least in where I live, the laws are pretty straightforward when it comes to child support. They look at what your income is. They look at what her income is. If she makes more than you, guess what? She's not getting as much money, right? They look at what you're making, and then they say, this is what you're going to get. Well, I was thinking in my head, there's no way. this is not doable if we're living in, if we would be in separate houses. This is like, this little bit of money, I was thinking to myself, is not going to support what I wanted for my kids.
Right. And I'm not, there are plenty, of course, there are plenty of men out there that are dodging child support. There are men that completely abandon their children. However, I was in a relationship with a man who had a regular job. He was not wealthy. He was paying $1,800 a month in child support. Okay, $1,800 a month in child support. To me, that was a lot of money. And then whenever he got, I'm sorry, I'm that girl. Whenever he got that phone call where it's like, Dad, I need this, Dad, I need that. In my mind, it's not my place to speak on his children or what he's doing for his children. But hold on, when I did hear those phone calls, I'm sorry, I'd be my tea like, what the fuck you mean they need something? You're giving them $1,800 a month. But it's not my place. I just felt it was excessive because he had a regular job.
Right.
My issue now, take that gentleman that you're just discussing right now, Jen. I assume this gentleman was a good guy.
Yes.
Okay. Now, quite often in these women's spaces, even in these toxic, vitriolic women's spaces, they don't discuss men such as that. They have a complete and utter obsession with motherfuckers who are degenerate, who have no intellectual, who lack the intellectual acumen, the discipline to actually be functional human beings, much less fathers. And their obsession with those men is so loud and so broad. They paint a huge and broad paintbrush and say every man and most men are like this. So they do not have they do not have the scope. They are not what is the word? They're not refined enough and not prepared enough to understand that there is a very large bracket of men who are the complete antithesis of those men, and they don't speak to those guys.
Right.
They don't converse with those guys.
The guy I'm talking about he would break his neck because he doesn't live in the same state. So he would break his neck on flights to go see those kids, whenever they had, some wrestling match or whatever the kids were doing. He would go out his way for gifts. While all the while paying the child support I'm talking about here, they were also under his medical plan. And I would see what type of father he was. And I was like, damn, this is messed up. Like, he's paying a lot of money in child support. He's breaking his neck to go see the children. And there are a lot of men out there like that. There are a lot of men. We can't deny that.
Yeah, the men are in my life that are like that because I don't hang out with deadbeats. So, and I feel sorry for them too. I'm like, oh Lord, thank God
it's really funny. It's really funny that women such as yourself have no problem meeting these kinds of men. But all these other women just seem to just have just terrible luck. You would just think that you just attract the energy that, you project. Anyway.
That's what I'm telling people regarding child support, because I don't want to make this a child support stream, but regarding child support, please watch my child support stream with Christopher Higdon. He's an amazing father, and he talks about how child support was destroying him, and he had custody of his children. He got custody of his children. His kids were in honors programs. They were great students. So, I'm just saying everybody's not the same. But this is not about child support. This is about, did men create the world that has no compassion for them? That is where we are. And
I've been sending a lot of people that stream too, because it was really, really good.
Yeah.
The guys I was just telling you about, the ones that's getting their butt whipped by child support, I sent it all to them.
Oh, amazing. A couple of people have asked me, like, how do I contact him? And I'm like, you have to hear that stream. If you're paying child support, you have to hear that stream. Don Levon, thank you for the super chat. Don Levon says, if a woman can't afford to take care of her child, the government steps in and helps her. If a man can't afford to take care of his child, he goes to prison. Please watch that stream. Please watch my child support stream. I beg of you, if you're paying child support, watch that stream. Yes, Don Levon, that is correct.
But what about the women who step in to help? Because I know plenty of women that help men pay child support. for children that are not their own.
Yep.
No saying you're on mute. We can't hear you.
No wonder. I was gonna say, I thank goodness the government steps in and helps these children. I always hated being like a man versus woman war, like somehow that's a bad thing that I'm thinking the kids when it comes to that. I'm thinking that the kids need that support. I'm much less worried about and as far as what you were saying, it's absolutely true. If the man wins custody, child support goes to them. It does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear more from the young lady right here on my right. I mean, just for the sake of her actually talking, seriously.
Right.
I don't know if I have more else to say. I mean, like I said, I had to turn off the chat because I was getting wild.
Don't pay attention to them.
Just ignore
you can't. You gotta learn how to ignore
these people.
Child, they be coming for me every night. Some people.
The chat is gonna chat.
Don't see. Here's the thing. I remind people all the time. You know what I mean? I said what I said. You're gonna do what? You're just
gonna only like 4
what I said.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like these people right here. What? They're just obsessed with throwing pot shots from the outside the club.
The chat is gonna chat, mama.
You don't want that smoke.
Pretty much.
You don't want the smoke coming to you, Ron.
I mean, hey, man. I do, man. I need to, as Don Levon said, I haven't really cussed anybody out yet. So
smoke is good every now and then. Smoke is good every now and then, but let's not get carried away. No, Annalisa, yeah, he was doing what he was supposed to be doing. It's weird sometimes. I love Anna, but it's weird. Like you say something and then she hears something else. Right?
No, wait. Annalisa, no one's talking in cryptic tones, sweetheart. Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. Annalisa, no one is talking.
That's what I was saying, Haran.
No, she said, Haran, just stop. You don't need to talk in cryptic, passive-aggressive soliloquies. And I'm telling her that I'm not doing that. I'm not even thinking about you right now, Annalisa. It's not that deep.
Let's stick to the topic.
What's up, man?
What's going on,
gang? What's going on, gang? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. Had to bring my passive-aggressive little dick, egotistical, chauvinistic ass up here.
Don't be policing tones up in here, Dame. I'm a sensitive man.
My little dick energy made me come up here to try to.
You came in here to cry?
I came to cry.
You can't. I got you.
This is a safe space.
Sensitive thugs. We all need hugs.
I just have to see. This is why I qualify my statements. That's why you have to watch. If you're paying child support and you're having trouble paying child support, please go watch that stream. It is not a stream that justifies you not paying child support or taking care of your children. Okay, that is not what that was. It was very informative because you're not even supposed to be paying child support. But he explained it way better than I can. With that said, that doesn't mean that men aren't supposed to take care of their children. You're supposed to take care of their children, but we're not also going to deny the other side of it. Women use and abuse that system. My own sister did it. I saw her do it, where she lied about extracurricular activities that my niece was not doing so she can get more money. She lied about my niece having babysitters when my mother was taking care of her and she wasn't giving my mother money. So let's not sit up here and act like women don't abuse the system, because I've seen them do it with thine eyes. Okay.
I recently saw like this interview with that comedian Earthquake, where he said he was giving his ex-wife money she put him on child support, but he was just like giving her more money than she asked for. It'd be like thousands of dollars. And he calculated he gave her a ton of money. And then she took him to court when the kid was like 16 or 17, saying, he hasn't been paying, but because he hadn't been paying through the state, she was able to get the money that he gave her plus some back child support because he didn't pay actually through the child support system, through the state. and he was just giving her money, and he didn't write on any kind of money that he was giving. Like he gave her cash, and he gave her like, he would like, you know, Venmo and stuff like that. He didn't put down for child support. And he got the shit into the stick that way. Another person who I was watching who's really good on explaining how to like maneuver through child support is actually Gilbert Arenas. Gilbert Arenas is like a child support expert when it comes to that shit. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you reminded me of something. This is what I'm talking about laws being too rigid. So when I was working in Michigan, we had a guy that was paying child support and alimony. And there's certain times where in this career that you go through where you're short man. And like here, for instance, after Katrina, they had no, like some people were stuck out, you know, for 6 months, 8 months somewhere else. And they had nobody, you have a minimum manning. So they had nobody backfilling. So overtime was like crazy, right? I mean, they were working, you know, 4 or 5 days a week, going home a day, coming back, you know, well, that would be 6 days. So say, let's just 4 or 5 and coming back in 2 days, work another 4 or 5 and and I'm talking about 24 hours a day. I'm not talking about going home and work 8 hours home and going home. Right. So people were making a ton of money. So then you get brought to court by your ex-wife who says, yeah, he's making a lot of money. And then you're explaining to the court that, well, that was just 1 year because of these situations. The court doesn't want to hear it. They're looking at what you made the last year and a half. And if you're making, you know, at this point, 80 to 90,000 more than you made the previous year, now you're paying money on that and you're not making that money anymore. And that's why I say the law is too rigid. They don't really take into consideration circumstances, you know, and I think that's unfair.
Like, just to be fair and balanced, I also know of a dude personally who juked the system where we were working this job and he was about to get promoted and he told our boss, hey, don't promote me before I have my court hearing.
Right.
Because I don't
there's plenty of dudes. There's plenty of dudes that
no, that's he really said that. He said, I don't want the promotion before my court hearing.
I know a guy who purposely, you know, what do you call that? Modifies all the time, like keeps his child's mother in court so he can get out of paying child support. There are two sides to it. That's all I'm saying. There are two sides to it. And I don't deny either side. And I'm not biased. Yeah. I'm not biased. Both people abuse the system or try to get out the system. But I'm not about to sit up here and not give you my experience because your experience has been something else.
Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You know, here's how I live my life. If somebody's a piece of shit, I'm not trying to change them because they're a piece of shit. Yeah, you tried to dupe the system because you're a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna come after you. I'm not gonna do whatever. You're gonna do whatever you're gonna do because you're a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Because guess what? There's pieces of shit in the world. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it is what it is. You just have to make the decision of that, hey, this person is this particular way. I'm not this particular way. Let me go in this direction. I'm not in the business of stressing myself because the entire world isn't in the vision of what I need it to be in order for me to feel safe. Because in many ways, that's a very micro version of fascism. And a lot of people are walking around like mini fascists. But that's another thing.
But you know what? This is a great exhibit for the topic tonight. It's a great exhibit. The men create the world that has no compassion for them. It's a great exhibit because check this out. We're talking about tonight. I wanted it to be guys' night. What is it that you feel? Do you feel like there's no compassion for you? How did we get here? Right? It's fellas' night, right? And I bring up child support, right? And what we get is all the pushback in the world of what men are supposed to be doing. And they're trying to get, this is not that we're not talking about genders tonight. We were trying to stay on the men, but we can't even talk about what men go through. If you notice, Lily, we can't even talk about what men go through without women pushing back. Yeah, but what about, are you supposed to be doing it? Case.
Because nobody gives a fuck. That's just what I keep saying. Nobody gives a fuck.
That's what it comes down to.
Nobody gives a fuck. I keep saying that, man. Time and time again. Nobody gives a fuck.
Part.
So guess what? If you don't give a fuck, I don't give a fuck. So
and
if
then
we're
we're
gonna,
back to everybody not giving a fuck.
and it is what it is, baby. It is what it is. But I tell you what, though, I ain't gonna be broke and not give a fuck. I tell you that much. You know what I mean? We can. I'll rather give a fuck with the lights on. So you know, it is what it is. But yeah, man.
I wish Christopher was watching and he would stop by, because I mean his story is really amazing. I just want, listen, I come in peace. I don't have a white flag, but here's an orange one, right? I come in. I'm just trying to give the guys a night. Can we give the guys a night? Just what?
Hell no! How dare you?
So somebody said something in the chat that I like. What does compassion mean to us individually? Like, what does that look like? What? My thing is, my question will be to the men: what does that look like for you all? What do you want?
What do you need?
What do you need?
What do you need?
Somebody to shut the fuck up.
Okay. What you said?
Somebody to shut the fuck up.
Well, you can't get that.
See? We can't even get the basics. Okay, that's what I need.
There's a high price tag attached to shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. It's on the top shelf.
I mean, you gonna pay for that. Shut the fuck up. If you don't pay on the front end, you gonna pay on the back end.
Seriously, it's got a nice little case. You know, you got to get a key to open it.
We need hugs. I got church hugs for you.
The pat on the back.
Yeah.
Man.
I got a couple church hugs for you. Damien, sir.
Hey, what's up? What's going on?
Create a world that has no compassion for them. You're in late.
I'm very late.
Okay, you're very late, so you probably missed the beginning. I was just basically going over how men are making these laws, including the laws for child support, right? I was talking about how men are constantly pushing other men to man up, how men raise their little boys, okay, to be rigid, right? So did men create this world where now it's like, what do you mean I gotta have compassion? What do you mean? What are you crying for? Men are men.
Yeah. I think what happens a lot of time is men created a world for themselves that they thought, okay, this is how we can function. This is how we gonna keep control and maintain things, keep the status quo. But they didn't factor in one thing, that if the women don't like it, they ain't gonna be able to get, the women is gonna protest and they're gonna not give up sex. They're gonna raise hell. So they didn't factor, oh shit, women may not like this. So we need to change some of these laws to make them happy and to benefit them, because right now they're sitting up here like saying that the laws is unfair, and then they're gonna withhold the things that we want, you know. So I think it was created for a different time, a different man, a different set of expectations. It was created for men who all you had to do was, the women were not a consideration of it. They had no consideration in the way things were structured, the way society was structured, the way men were supposed to behave. It was like the men took care of you, and you said, but now women need to be included because of the fact that we do find value in women. I was just joking, like I was just waiting for like somebody to jump on me and be like, "Oh my God, all our value is pussy." No, I was just waiting for it. I was trying to throw it out. Nobody bets. It's all good.
Yeah, I was looking at the chat. I was waiting for them to say it, but no one got you. Yeah.
It's too early. I can't guarantee after the 2-hour mark. You know, I'm about to say.
Because somebody told me my head would roll. They was gonna check me.
That's gremlin time when we hit that 2-hour
demon
mark,
time.
Man.
Now, so basically, yes, they created a world for men that no longer exist. They structured everything around ways of thinking that are counterproductive to successful interactions nowadays. You know, you specifically interact with other men, not as well as with women. You know, a woman is not going to sit there and sit back blindly and take some of the things or the lack of opportunity and respect that they might have taken back in the day. So now men are trying to like rethink. They're trying to restructure their brain to take that into consideration. They're like, okay, but the old school and the new school are kind of at battle with each other. There's all that, there's all that, oh, you need to be a man, you need to man up, stuff like that. But then there's also, but if you do that, women, you won't get a chance. You probably won't get yourself a woman if you think of that. And if you did, it won't be a woman that you really value.
Okay. Thank you for the super chat, Don Levon. Don Levon says usually if a woman is complaining that most men don't pay enough child support, the reason could be that they just got pregnant by a broke, dusty ass ninja. All right. I know, because Annalisa said most men pay $40 a month in child support. I don't know anybody.
I thought that's what they pay for a prostitute.
I've never, ever heard
that $40 is the magic number.
Right. It seems like the magic
really
number. I
is.
thought that was
40 for prostitutes, 40 for child support.
Straight a lot of lives, man.
I've never heard that. Anyway, going back to something Brianne said, and going back to something you said, Damien. So the crying thing, do men want to turn to women when they're not feeling good, when they're stressed, when they want to cry? I, for one, have a father. I am 49 now. I have never seen my father cry, not one tear, not even a struggle tear. My father was rigid. He damn near abused my brother. Like, this is what men do. This is how men are. My father's rigid. He thinks cemeteries are a waste of land. He thinks they could, build condominiums over graves. My father's rigid, man.
I'm kind of with him on that. Sorry.
Yeah, he's got my vote.
Yeah, he does got my vote. I'm like,
yeah, my dad is like, this is what it takes to be a man. No emotion, nothing, very stoic. He's like, what's the problem? Let's fix it. Let's throw money at it and let's keep it pushing. I ain't got time. So, Damien, are you going to a woman if you feel bad or you feel tearful, you feel like crying? Did you cry watching The Notebook?
Nah, what you call it? I have the one time that I don't cry a lot, like hardly ever. My wife is like, "You never cry. I've been with you for 17 years, and you didn't cry at our wedding. You didn't cry when our babies were born, or nothing like that." But there's one time she did, and this was not too long ago. It's like,
you didn't cry when the babies were born?
I did not cry. I was so happy. I was just like, I was like high-fiving doctors and nurses and stuff like that. And I was nervous. So I was like, I really got to take care of somebody. What the fuck? I was like,
Right.
That's like me. I'm somebody, daddy. And it was a daughter too. So I was just like, I'm a. So
that'll make you nervous.
So, but yeah, it was just like, I feel like you can, with the right woman, it's all about the right one. So women will significantly judge you and they will look at you as soft. I've watched people and I've talked to women who've said, like, they give you maybe a 1 or 2 every 6-year crying pass, and it's got to be something. Your mama got to die, your baby's got to be born. There's certain, there's levels of acceptable crying, and but for the most part, the last time I felt like, upset and I want to cry is when my son is super smart, but he's a nerd. He's absolutely the opposite of who I was at his age, as 8 years old. He's a nerd, but he's just an amazing kid. And I went to pick him up he goes to like this after school program, and I went to go pick him up. And he couldn't find his glasses. Turns out his glasses was somebody one of the kids threw his glasses on the top of like the bleachers or something like that. So we had to like climb up and find his glasses. And then, I took him home. I was like, who did it? And I was upset. And he was just like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, daddy. This kind of things happens to me all the time.
Oh.
And I just, my eyes welled up and I was just like, I didn't know what to do. I was just so lost because he's not a fighter. He's not one of those people that's going to punch somebody in the face like I was. He's just not that cat. He's just not built like that. But it's just like, he was like, don't worry about it. It happens all the time. I'm used to it. And I was just like, fuck. I was like, whose dad do I got to go beat up?
Right.
Seriously. And it was just one of those things where that really happened because it's just like, I'm supposed to help him learn how to protect himself. And so, but it's just not, we're just different. We're growing up in different worlds. Like I grew up in the hood. He's growing up, in a gated community with a bunch of spoiled kids and stuff like that. So it's just like, it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know how to protect him from that without it being detrimental to his long term, to him long term. Like, but I do tell him, if somebody put your hands on him, you put your hands on them back. It's all good. You'll never get in trouble, but it's just not in him. So that's the thing. And it's just like, I feel like that's the thing. I went to my wife about. That was like, upset and felt helpless and didn't know what to do. Because like I said, my first instinct is protect my family fiercely. And when I felt like I couldn't protect them, and I was like, and not just, I couldn't go there and beat up a little kid. It's just like, I didn't know how to teach him how to protect himself. Those are the things that, I feel like, am I not preparing? Am I doing what this topic is about? Am I not preparing him? Is he too compassionate? Am I not preparing him for the hardness of the world? Have I sheltered them too much to where, they don't realize the danger that's out there?
I think we've done that with our children because,
Yes.
And our people who are in their late 40s, maybe even early 40s and up, we experienced a very, very dark and violent version of the world. And our response was to go out there and create this world that was the complete antithesis to what we experienced, where kids are safe, you bust your ass to get a great job so you can live in a gated community. You give them all this shit, you know what I mean? But basically everything that your childhood wasn't.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You go out there, we went out there, and we created this world. And in a sense, we created this world, all of us created this world that was so safe.
It doesn't
and
exist.
So without, you know what I mean, any
Insulated,
spikes. Yeah. So, you know what I mean, we declawed them in a lot of ways, to the point where it's like anytime they're about to face some sort of hardship, something jumps out and it's like, shit, man, this is the kind of the thing that I was trying to keep away from this kid. But it's like, you can't shelter them from life.
All right.
You can't shelter them from those things. And it's just like, I've seen a lot of kids who just can't cope with what's going on in the world because their parents were helicopter parents. I'm not saying you were, Dane. I mean, no. I was as a father. You know what I mean? My first full 4 years, a couple of years as a father over my daughter, I was a helicopter parent. I'm like, who's that? What is she eating? What do you mean you're talking that way to my daughter? Like I was just that father. And I had to calm myself down a few times, like, let me just chill before I catch a case over my kid. You know what I mean? But it's the response to what I experienced. I had to tell myself that I experienced a world that was just fucked up. And I didn't want any of that, in our life.
I posted about this like 2 weeks ago. I was really thinking about this because okay, so it's 4 of us. I'm the oldest. And then there's one, Brandon's right under me. So we grew up together. We're 3 years apart. So we grew up in the 80s and 90s in DC, right, when it was the murder capital. Okay. We fought. And then I was the feminine one. So I fought, and that's why I know how to fight, and my brother was the fighter of the neighborhood. So that was just what we did. And we weren't sheltered. And when I went out into the world, it was exactly what I expected it to be. And it was actually a lot easier. But then I have 2 younger siblings that are way younger than us, right? Mind you, too, my dad was, he was present, but he was on heroin when I was growing up. My parents were struggling, but then my dad got clean, got better job. And so when he had the second family with my younger brother and my sister, they grew up completely different. They grew up very sheltered. And it is insane, like the difference between the 2, groups of us, that they're just so not prepared for the world because that's not the real world. It's just not the real world. And I posted about this saying that I was so glad that I wasn't sheltered when I grew up. And I was asking people like, how were you when you were growing up, and how did it prepare you for the world? Were you prepared for the world? You know, and how do you feel like about your children? And everyone said the same thing that you just said, but that you both just said, like, they feel like they over sheltered their children and now their children are not prepared. And I have young people telling me themselves, all of them actually telling me, I'm not prepared. I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't know this existed. Young people are saying that.
Y'all making me nervous because I'm like, I baby this grandbaby.
Yeah, but let's talk. I want to look. You know, if I ask Damien, like, okay, would you rather have your childhood or the childhood you provide for your child?
That's yeah.
Right.
See,
so wait. Because what I want to say is the kid, like my oldest is going to college. He's been on honor roll since he went to school. He's very smart, very good in math and science, and he wants to be a computer programmer. He doesn't have much of a social life. He has a little bit of a speech impediment. I'm sure he gets picked on, right? To me, that's not preparing, because when you get into the real world, sure, like around here in the fire department, we give it to each other big time. But it's not like when your kid gets into the corporate world or gets in a job that they're allowed to take his glasses and throw it. There are consequences. So, I'm not saying Haran or you were saying, get out there and fight and beat people up is the right thing to do, or that's even where you were going with it. But to me, I understand the shelter part. Well, yeah, you're right. We definitely, our generation has sheltered our kids. That's for sure. When I think about the stuff that, just the way I grew up, I can tell you there was a few times where I look back and like, literally, I could have died because we were going into the drains, like the drains that people pour oil down in, with a flare. Now, first of all, you can die going into the sewer drain, and not the sewer. It's not sewer, it's drainage drains. You can die just from having gases and decomposition. You can just pass out and be done. And then when you light a flare, you can die from an explosion. And we didn't just do that once. So I'm thinking to myself, ain't no way my kid's gonna go through that. I'm gonna shelter him from that. You know what I mean? I mean, there's literally times where I think, man, I am lucky to be alive. And yeah, so there is some helicopter going on there. But when it comes to you feeling the way you did about what happened to your kid, I totally can understand why. That's any parent. You're not supposed to go through that at school. You're not supposed to. Yeah. You're going to school to get educated, not to have to fight.
But then they got to fight on social media. They have social media. We didn't. We only had maybe had a few bullies in our vicinity, in our neighborhood, in our school. Now they have the world that can bully them. That's a whole nother situation.
And I agree. The last thing I want my son to do is get into any type of fight or whatever like that. Well, my youngest son, I ain't worried about because he'll knock a motherfucker out. I just, but my second one, it's just like the way I learned. The one thing my brother taught me a lot of horseshit and a lot of bullshit that could have taken my life in a lot of direction, but he learned, don't take no shit off of nobody. So I was able to successfully transfer that from the physical to now in my executive setting. Like, what I do for a living, I run a executive sales team that sells e-commerce software to businesses.
Yeah.
So, but I started off selling, and then they would always try to step up and try to like get in on your deals or try to stick your clients or whatever like that. So it taught me to don't take shit off of nobody. Anyway, so I still took that mentality, but I transferred from a not physical way to, you need to stand up for yourself. You need to speak out. You need to say stuff. You need to let people know you are not the fucking one to be fucked with. Go fuck with the other dude, because you come here just to fight on your hands, and you're going to remember it. Win or lose, you're going to know that you've been through something. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing. And that's what I learned. That's the one thing I learned from my oldest brother, because he was a degenerate like a motherfucker. But that's the one thing I learned from him, was just like, don't take shit off of nobody. And I still have that mentality. And I think because I have that mentality, I've been able to do some of the things and reach some of the levels that I've reached. So that's what I'm trying to, like, I can instill that into them. But I think the practical applications of it are just like, can he really put it together? Because me, I saw it, if I took shit off of people, my physical being was threatened. If he takes shit off of people, he just got to, it's not the same degree of, okay, what is the harm in to me? What is the real detriment to me? Okay, his whole mentality is like, okay, so I have to climb up the bleachers to get my glasses. But no, it goes deeper than that. I was like, you should understand. It should be about, that's somebody who disrespecting you, and you should stand up for yourself and let it be know that you are never the fucking one to be disrespected. And that's what I'm trying to find a balance between telling them to punch dudes in the face and telling them to just, what to do, because that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
I would just say my experience was I was very sheltered as a child, couldn't go anywhere without, my brothers or my father. So when I actually got into the real world at 18, there were a lot of things I had to learn, like as I experienced them or saw other people experiencing them. So luckily, the way I was raised, I was able to see other people make mistakes and realize I didn't want to make those same mistakes. So I was reverted back in a way to my upbringing, but it was hard. I'm not going to say it was easy, but I had to make my own mistakes as well. But I at least knew to watch the people around me before I did or tried something.
Yeah. And, if you think about it, panel, if you think about it, absolutely, there's certain things you give up by helicopter. And the same way as, like, my kids don't understand the struggle that their mother went through, right? And I don't understand the struggle that, my grandparents through the Great Depression and all that went. I have no idea, right? Because I grew up, pretty much the same. My parents, as far as my parents' income to my income, it's probably around equal, right? So those struggles you lose. Like for instance, Erica, she can bust open anything and fix anything because it was a necessity. She grew up in a third world country. You just didn't throw stuff away. You know what I mean? It's like, hell no, I'm going to open this up and fix it. Well, I don't have that. I don't necessarily have the skills she has in that, because when I was growing up, you poked a hole in a Stretch Armstrong. Okay, it's done. You throw it away.
I did that.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, let me maybe put some tape on it, but there was no, there was no busting. It was like, oh, I want another one. You know what I mean? So you lose those lessons, like the lessons you grew up in, Dame. You have different experiences, obviously, than I've had. Than I had. So I don't have those lessons to give. I just have what I can give to my kids the way I grew up. So there are things that you do give up living in a different world, I guess. And I think that's
hard times make for strong men, and good times make for weak men.
Well, exactly. To the point of this, it's like guys such as myself. I was having a conversation with someone the other day. Guys such as myself, I'm not necessarily in vogue when it's peacetime. This is peacetime. During wartime, during times of famine and destitute and desperation. Yeah, guys like me are necessary.
Yeah.
Right now, guys like me are kind of like, I'm not per se that necessary. Because it's not that much of a fucking war to fight. Now, with that being said, certain things should be instilled, to Damien's point. Like, yes, you should be in the mindset of not allowing anyone to disrespect you. You should be in the mindset of allowing someone, not allowing people to not, try to desecrate your space, so on and so forth. You should have a very strong sense of self. Now, you can express that in a civil manner and still somewhat of a stern manner, and so on and so forth, and get your point across. When we were younger, you had to bust somebody overhead with a bottle in order to really drive that point home. We don't necessarily live in that world anymore, So it's not necessarily needed.
Right.
I get that. I understand that. So in a way, we have to find a way to repackage the message, but make sure that the message is still understood and these traditions are still handed down.
Yeah, one of the things I was wondering, I was like, is it all right if I can't? He'll never actually physically like see the dangers and stuff like. But I'm like, can I model that behavior? Because you know, I kind of wait for a situation where somebody says something to me and I got to show them about not backing down and what you call it. But like I said, I've been insulated my life so much. I'm almost 50 years old and I've insulated my life so much that I don't see it happening. You know, plus my neighbor's dog gonna shit on my yard and I'm gonna go, you know, and it's gonna be like, get you know, my neighbor will come be like, oh, I'm sorry, and come clean it up. You know, it'll be. There's no, I don't see the situation particularly happen.
Think about it. You give up. Like, think about it in this sense. Like, when you see someone that grows up in an affluent neighborhood, and you know they're hanging out with a buddy that you know might have grown up in the hood or whatever, and the guy in the affluent neighborhood, he's walking like with no worries, and then the guy from the hood has to say, "Hey man, come here." You know, some guys asking him a question like, "Hey man, hey, come here."
Listen, I find you guys know I'm from the Bronx, but I you know, it's being gentrified, whatever. But the way white people walk through the neighborhood is always amusing thing to me. I mean, not a care in the world, like oblivious. They go outside with their shorts and their wallet and their slippers to the bodega, and I'm looking out my window.
Cell phone out.
Right, the cell phone out. Back when I lived there, I'm looking out the window like, Whitey, do you know that you can get dragged out here? Like, what are you doing? But it's always amusing. I used to watch they in their flip-flops, you know what I mean? It's about 30 degrees in the Bronx, and they're going to the store with their wallet out and their cell phone and their iPad in their back pocket. I'm like, wow, it must be nice. Must be nice.
It's ignorant, right? It's ignorance, right? Ignorance is bliss, kind
of. But I'm gonna ask you a question on their circumstances, because like some of the cats back in the day when it started to happen in Oakland, it was like, leave that dude alone, because if you fuck with them, they're gonna rain. The police are gonna rain down on the heavens on your ass. So you need to leave. Don't mess with the Starbucks.
It's true.
Don't mess with the Starbucks. Don't rob the Starbucks. You rob the mom and pop. You rob, you know, Leroy's shop, but don't mess with the Starbucks because they're gonna
Leroy Hardware.
They're gonna seriously, they're gonna have swimming ducks and swats and you know. You know, people on horses coming for that ass.
Really quick, we got Glenn Lawrence in the building. What's up, brother Glenn? Hit that like for me, guys. A lot of people are watching. It doesn't match my likes. Glenn Lawrence says parents strive to give their children a better childhood, but in doing so, they tend to not provide them the good things that from your childhood that benefited you and made you who you are today. I mean, that's a great note because I think about, you know, my grandson, my grandbaby, he's only 6, but I'm so overprotective. I'm like, I don't want him to hear bad music. I don't want him to see bad things. I just feel guilty that there's murder and mayhem on the planet. I want to protect him.
Is that grandbaby?
Right? We do Saturday morning session.
Just 2.
Oh my God.
A grandson 6 and a newborn little girl.
Oh wow.
And I'm so protective of them. I'm like, no, I don't want them to go through anything that I went through. I don't want them to experience it. But Glenn is right. You're right. You guys are right. It's like you can't.
The sheltering can be an inhibitor. So, like I said, when I finally turned 18 and I left my parents' house and went to college, I struggled really hard. They never once had a conversation about really anything bad. They didn't even let me watch the news. So getting out into the real world, and I know you want to protect them. I'm just saying from 18 to 21, I struggled. I was like, this can't be the real world. Is this just where I live? Like, is the whole world this bad? And I realized for the most parts are very, very bad. I wish I just had a quick little glimpse, or if they ever sat down and have a conversation, but it was always, you can't go here. You can't do this. You know, what I say goes, you live in this house, you live by these rules, but there was never any explanation behind it. So the explanation behind it, even age appropriate, when they get about 16, 17, have those very hard talks about what the world is actually like is going to be needed. I mean, we didn't even really have the birds and bees talk, for goodness sake. So any type of preparation is definitely going to be needed before 18. That's my.
I just want to answer 2 questions real quick. I just want to give a yee to Virgo Smith. And then I just want to ask her, my boy B, I'm 48 years old, man. That's how I am.
I think.
Thank you, Virgo. Yeah, noted, Brienne. And listening to everybody else, I'm not gonna. It won't just be baking cookies with him.
You know,
I mean, they're little now, but you can still tell them, like, watch out for strange behavior, watch out for these type of things. But as they get 15, 16, they're already going to have some access to the internet, because I didn't even have really access to the internet.
You already have
this talk.
When I was growing up, though, this is what's funny about me, because my childhood is a little bit weird in the sense that I grew up in DC. And if you know anything about DC in the 80s and 90s, it was Chocolate City, it was the murder capital, all that great stuff, right? But I was lucky enough to grow up on Capitol Hill. So I grew up around all the senators and the congressmen and all of that other stuff. We were like the Beverly Hillbillies of the block. Like, we did not match the block, because my whole family is from Southeast DC. And Southeast DC is like gutter, right? It is the gutter. And like, so they brought a lot of their Southeast ways to Capitol Hill. So we'd be up on the stoop, and they got their 40s and all that. This is real stuff, like, and next to senators and congressmen and all that other stuff. And so I went to really good schools and all that other stuff. But then they always took me back to where they were from. They talked to us. My dad was very, very, very big on me being street smart. Very big on me being street smart. And I thank him so much for doing that, because I needed it. Because I always think about, what if a child rebels? What if they rebel and they want to hit the streets and they know absolutely nothing? Because that's what I did. I rebelled. You know, even though I grew up well and all that stuff, I rebelled. And thank God I knew some things. And that's why I was able to survive, you know?
Do you remember Schoolhouse Rock? I was laughing at that comment, not what you were saying. Like, I'm just a bell sitting up on top. I was like,
I love that.
Oh my gosh, I love
that.
I
love that. Yeah.
I'm with my kid. With my kid right now. With my kid, I'm learning how to do certain things and kind of easing up, and letting her sit in her own identity and so on and so forth. I used to just shower her with a whole bunch of shit when she came into this world. I was buying her like princess dresses, spending just ungodly amounts of money on her, doing all kinds of great, crazy, wild shit. Like, in comparison to me, my daughter, her life, she lived the life of a rich kid in comparison to me. Like, she had a big screen TV. When she was like 7, I didn't have a big screen TV until I like moved out of the house. You know what I mean? Like, so where she is now, like, I was nowhere near that when I was her age. You know what I mean? We were just literally trying to just get by. And I guess I'm really learning more so about, I don't want to, I'm trying not to hold so tight, and I'm trying to, let go of my grip a little bit more, because as she gets older, she's going to have to learn certain lessons and so on and so forth. But it's a learning experience for me as well, as it should be for her.
So I want to put you guys in the hot seat for a minute, since we're talking about men, building this world for men. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about, what are you teaching these boys, whether they're your nephews, your sons, about sex? I spoke earlier about when a child is molested, unfortunately, a male child, right? He can either be molested in his adolescence or a teenager in high school. Other men cheer on the female teacher who molested them. They even go on to say, where was she when I was young? That's the most toxic shit I've ever heard, yet men do it. I see it every time online. Every time there's a teacher exposed for sleeping with one of her students, the men cheer on the teacher and say, where was she? What is that about?
Just sick shit. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. So,
go ahead.
So yeah. I mean, I'll speak for myself. When I was 14 or 15, we had crushes on teachers, right? Mm-hmm. But when you become an adult, you kind of thinking about yourself. I don't think it's right. Obviously, I think I definitely, there is a double standard when it comes to a man with a underage girl in school type thing. We definitely think of it as men differently for whatever reason, but I don't think it's right. I just think you're seeing it through your lens. Like, man, that teacher's pretty hot. Where's that hot teaching when I was in school? But when you think of it logically, you realize that that's not a good thing for the 12, 13, 14-year-old kid. So
And
yeah.
she's a pedophile. She is a pedophile at the end of the day.
But
you know what I mean? We don't say that though.
But-
And a lot of times we allow those women, we allow a lot of those women that they have very short sentences if they get sentenced.
Yeah, well, that's what what's the lady's name down here? The young lady?
Brienne.
She was saying how and I think Jen, you might have been saying that too, like historically women get lighter sentences.
Yeah.
And prettier women get lighter sentences.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think in a jury of mostly men, I think they would get a lighter sentence.
I think what it is because it's so propagated that men are supposed to chase and attract women. It's not viewed as detrimental to the long-term development as a male child than it is a woman. That's because it's out there that men are supposed to be doing that. That's everything you do is geared around obtaining resources so you can attract the best woman possible. So it's not looked upon as detrimental as in society. That's why women can have lesser sentences and can so
yeah. And I also think if you listen, I'm not gonna lie, I'm sure Damien's experience and Haran's experience was much different as my experience growing up. When you're growing up as a really horny teenage boy at 14 or 15, and you're not getting that much, you're not getting a whole lot of, you are looking for sex at that age. A lot of guys are looking for sex at that age because their hormones are growing crazy, right? So I think men think back to that time too, where was it, it's like a joke. They kind of joke around, especially, listen, I work in a firehouse. We talk about a lot of effed up shit here, right? But that kind of stuff gets thrown around. But logically, like I would never want a teacher to do that to my son. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would never want my son to be taken advantage of, even if he is, if he isn't successful or something with women or, quote unquote successful sexually.
Like there was a scene.
Little boys are not being taught correctly about sex and hormones and being that horny kid. Are men dropping the ball?
Yeah.
Because guess what? Girls are horny too.
No. We are far more helicopter when it comes to girls, especially as fathers. You know what I mean? We don't want our girls doing anything until she's like 24, until she leaves the house.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? When it comes to our boys, it's just like, well, as long as he doesn't do anything stupid, fuck it. Go out there and live long and prosper.
Sow your royal oats.
Exactly. So it's like, we need to reel that in too, because it's like, we need to start telling our boys, like, this can happen, that can happen. Be very conscious and clear. Because here's the thing about surviving a lot of bad choices in life. And I survived a lot of bad choices in life. The key word being survive. Mm-hmm. Everybody doesn't survive this shit. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who've done a lot of the things that I've done and more and died. You know what I mean? So you could go down a certain path, but that doesn't mean you're going to survive it. And I wouldn't want, anyone that I love to go down a particular path and they not understand what's down that path and they not be equipped, and that is not gender specific. You know what I mean? It has to be for the women and it has to be for the boys and the girls.
I think one of the things is, as a parent, to see your 15-year-old daughter walk in pregnant is something. Well, as a father, I should say, not as a parent, but see your 15-year-old daughter come in pregnant does something different to your mind. To hear that your 15-year-old son got a 15-year-old girl pregnant is because there's a visual reminder of your failures as a father every day. Mm-hmm. Every day you're feeling like I failed as a father because I'm sitting here watching my 15-year-old daughter's belly get bigger. It doesn't resonate the same way as for men because they feel like, okay, your future has been significantly affected and in some cases retarded because you had this is the choice that you choose to make. A lot of times they don't see it as the man. The boy can still, you know, in society's eyes, do everything that he was going to do. You want to be a football player, you can play football. You want to go and be a musician, you can be a musician. You want to go to college, you can go to college. So society doesn't see the harm as significant for the boys as they do for the women.
You know, as you're saying this, all I'm picturing is somebody with a set of twins, a boy and a girl, and both of them end up with one of them's pregnant and one of them got somebody pregnant. And how does that work?
Yeah. You know, there's that saying too that, you know, I have, like, for instance, I have 3 sons. I just have to worry about 3 dicks. If I had 3 daughters, I have to worry about 3,000.
Everyone, all of them.
You know,
that's what they say.
Yeah,
they say.
But what I was going to say was, you know, with me, like, I grew up and, you know, consequently, both my sisters got pregnant out of wedlock. But where you're getting told, especially being in a religious thing, you know, oh, wait for marriage. And it's just unrealistic. So what I tell my sons is, if you find yourself in a situation, to protect yourself and don't get someone pregnant, because that is going to change the course of your life. Could change the course. And if you have daughters, it definitely will change the course of your life. But even with sons, it could change the course of their life, because if you want anything to do with that child, you're going to have to be involved. You know, suddenly you're a father. Suddenly, you know, you had plans to do all these things, and it's not as easy once you have kids. So I try to be realistic. If they find it, I don't sit there and say don't have sex till marriage, because that's all. It's just,
you know,
it's not realistic.
I'm rethinking this situation as I'm thinking about, we have Mr. Nick Cannon running around, like, making children in different households, and a lot of men, they don't see anything but the finances. That's it. They stop there. So then it's bringing me back to the topic. It's like, damn, you all are putting that on yourself, or like, because that's all you all seem to think that you are, is just money and provider. Like, oh, he's got the money. That's all I hear when it comes to the topic. And then I see the women trying to say, well, no, sir. I mean, the money's great. We love it. We appreciate it. But there's way, way more to it. There is just being present, showing them, having the masculine energy in the house or in their life. You know, just so many different things. But the minute I'm looking at this and I'm like, am I in the Twilight Zone? It's like every chat looks the same. So that says a lot to me about our society and how we look at manhood and fatherhood.
Well, that's the first thing that you're supposed to do. Like, you know, to quote my man Gus Fring from Breaking Bad, men provide.
See, somebody in the chat saying it right now. Let's see what I'm saying.
You know, men, we are supposed to provide. That's the number one indicator that you've reached a level of manhood, is that you have the ability to provide and protect. That's one of the first things that you're judged on by society, is what is your ability to provide? What is your ability to protect? And the more you can provide, the better protection you can usually, more resources you have, the better protection you usually can provide for your family. So that's just the number one thing that we're judged on as men, you know, unless you broke, then it's judged on.
Only thing. And I think a lot of men stop there and think that that's all they have to offer is their peen and their money. And then it's
do you consider a man with no job and children a man?
With no job? No, yeah.
Not he lost his job. Not he, you know, the pandemic came.
Hard times at the pandemic.
Yeah, it's just that he's just has no job, and he's living off a woman, but he has children. Society, just like and that's the common consensus of society, is that that person is not a man.
But you stop there. You don't go past that. We're agreeing that the finances and the providing is extremely important. But don't stop there. Like there's a couple other things that come into play, right?
But society doesn't judge those things as harshly. Like, for example, if he was rich, like Nick Cannon, and he comes on, he does the photo shoots and he he buys them houses, he's paying for them healthcare and stuff like that. He's still considered doing a man. He's still considered a man because he's doing the number one thing that you're judged on as men is providing for a family.
But you're saying society, and I'm seeing men, just like in this comment section, like that it's not society as a whole. It seems like the men are judging that each other on that, mostly, and just
women are judging on it too. If he was broke, they'd have a whole different conversation about Nick Cannon.
If he was broke,
I don't think the problem that people have with Nick Cannon is that he's having so many children. I think the problem that people are having with Nick Cannon is that he's having so many children and they're all not under the same roof.
I agree with that.
I think that's the issue. So it's like, what is it? Are you upset with this man because he's doing something that a lot of white men did? You know what I mean? And not using them as an excuse, but I guess to some degree he's playing up to some black male stereotype of just spreading your seed wildly. But in his situation, it's different because he's not broke. He has like 20 fucking baby mamas. You know what I mean? He's actually rich.
Really quickly, Damien, do me a favor, hon. Say hi to Veganista in the chat because she wants your attention really bad. And
I see it there. I see it. I see it. I see it.
I don't want anyone to feel neglected. Not my panel and my chat.
I'm treating
in the chat trying to get your attention.
I'm treating them like you treat the DMs you get on a regular basis. It's like,
surprise.
I know Damien's cute.
I went to my pantry earlier to get a snack, and there was an ant in there. I'll treat it exactly like I treated that ant.
Say hi to the woman. I mean, she keeps typing your name.
Like I said, hello. How are you?
Thank you.
How are you doing today? How's your day going?
Say hello.
Do you have love in your heart?
She is pining. She's pining in the chat. I don't know. I've never typed somebody's name that much. Say hello so we can move on.
I don't know if it's flattering as hell.
Yeah, be flattered. Be flattered. Yeah.
I mean,
flattered, honey. Oh my God.
I left a comment on the page. It was like, I could stop paying my mortgage because I'm living rent free in her brain. It's all good.
Say hi to this woman. My goodness. All right. Back to Nick Cannon. Funny enough, Mariah Carey has now filed for custody for her twins because she has twins with Nick Cannon.
Yeah,
so
I forgot all about that.
She's trying to take them kids away from that maid.
I forgot all about that shit.
They got lost in the sauce, and that's
like oh yeah, him and Mariah was married.
She wasn't baby mama, she was wifey, and she was number one. Nana, I always wonder about, like when I look at, like, that's why I was so mind blown with Sierra when she was like baby mama number 5 at the time or something like that. I was like, girl, like, if you see these other women complaining about this man and not being there, because no one was complaining about Future and finances that I could recall. They were complaining that he wasn't present.
But what happened with Ciara was her ego. She's like, I'm Ciara, so he's gonna treat me differently. And he was like, no, the hell I'm not. But
you're a praying mantis, and you can get played too.
The baddest bitch is the average bitch in that business. So she was thinking.
I'm pretty sure he treated her differently before he hit that, as we do as men. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean differently than all the other women. She thought she was gonna be different. I know men are on the best behavior in the beginning, but she was probably thinking, well, I'm a celebrity and those women aren't, so I'm gonna get, extra special treatment. He was like, nope, skeet next.
Yeah.
Hey, you see that? You see, Biggity just called me gay. I was waiting for that to come. It's come. What time is it? Hey, we had a bet. What time is it? Who said what time is it? Who said that it would be?
We passed the 2 hours.
Yeah, 1031. Who had 1031 before she called me gay? Who got that? Saying I think you had you had 1030. I think you're the winner.
You know who's funny?
The winner.
What's really funny about black women and women of color? They claim not to be homophobic, but anytime when it comes to making these kind of fucking jokes, they have no problem making these kind of jokes when it comes time to emasculate a man. Okay, so what if he's gay?
And what if
what I mean? What is that? Okay. That's supposed to be a joke? That's supposed to be a joke? Sounds real homophobic. Sounds like you motherfuckers be homophobic when it's real convenient for you.
Veganista got it bad for Dame. And it's okay. It's okay. Like, you think people are cute. I think he's fine.
Yeah, I mean, my wife thinks I'm pretty hot. The women, the couple of women I slept with before I got with her, they thought I was okay.
Right? The first time you cammed up, wasn't I ready to smash Dame? I was like, what's your
but I wasn't, but you would have never got it because as Veganista says, I'm sweet. I'm gay. Okay. Right. So no love.
Look at this. Long as you're not gay on the night.
But I'm a lesbian, no. I'm not gay. I'm a lesbian. Just put it that way.
You're the L, not the G.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I'm a lesbian. So
gotcha.
Good ties. All right, guys. So I want to close out with this. I don't want to address addressing the trolls is fun, but whatever. Let's get back to this because I feel like this is an important conversation. I'm gonna throw the banner back up real quickly so you guys can see. Thank you so much for holding me down in the chat, everybody. Did men create the world that has no compassion for them? Tonight, did we? I certainly, you know what I mean? I'm taking something with me from this conversation, not to be overbearing and overprotective on my grandbaby, even though I want his whole world. I told my daughter, I'm gonna just wrap him in bubble wrap. And I'm just gonna wrap him in bubble wrap. I don't want him bumping into anything. I don't want, so I understand that you have to have that balance. But gentlemen, I'm sorry, after this conversation, it sounds like you guys are the reason there's no compassion for men.
And besides, shut the fuck up, we didn't get any other solutions of how to be compassionate.
No, I just said that was one of the solutions.
Okay,
I didn't say that was the primary solution.
You
asked me what were one of my requirements, and I was like, "Shut the fuck up" is a good top 3. It's not the one thing.
We have to eliminate the stigma around being compassionate and being considerate. There's a stigma that goes along with that attached to it that means soft. We have to separate soft from compassionate. And that's what needs to happen. It needs to be, those two need to be separated. And I think that's one way that we're gonna kind of make it to where men feel like they can be compassionate without being judged. So, because don't get me wrong, it was like I come from a family. I was a gunslinger from a family of gunslingers, and they were not very compassionate. There was no compassion, Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. Everybody's matured. I know I've talked bad about my brother. I love my brother. If anything were to happen here, I'll be on the next flight and we handle this shit. But it's just like, and he's grown from them, but it's never been a situation where it was always stigmatized to show any type of compassion or consideration. So we just got to change that dynamic and we'll be okay.
All righty. No, Saint Haran, what do y'all need from us? And stop saying shut the fuck up. If a man says a woman should shut the fuck up, it tells me he doesn't fucking know feminine nature, right? Come on, that's a whole other topic. We're about to have a whole other topic.
Right. Like that comes with the package.
Hello? Make us
okay, all right. Understand that I am a person who I have layers. I have certain complexities and so on and so forth. I may not, exhibit this often into the outside world because it's not for that. But if I need a particular space to, exist in solitude, please respect that. I need solitude. I need certain things, and don't assume that just because you've met a series of men who need X, Y, Z, the basics and so on and so forth. I need those things. Like a lot of women think that most men need just some pussy and a sandwich and they'll be okay. I'm not necessarily that guy. Although there might be days where I just need pussy and a sandwich. You see how the complexity works? You see what I'm saying, Dave? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I may not need that on Monday, but I really need it on Thursday. But that doesn't mean that I need it every day. You know,
there's layers to this shit.
You know what I'm saying? There's layers to this shit. So yes, Jen, there's more of a lengthy explanation, and that's all I got.
No, Saint, what say you? Because Maya Moon is saying, wait a minute, the men are vague.
Right, because I'm trying to, like, take something back, and when I lost.
All right, what's going? I mean, but it's you. It's like you're trying to say, okay, how do you change the Earth's axis? It's just something that it's not a this or that answer. It's not a soup question.
You have to be in the moment, man. You got to really be in the moment, man. Like there could be a certain. You see, I get it. A lot of times, women, you guys just want a blueprint. You know what I mean? You want a blueprint, a series of things you can go to, but there's no hard and fast rules when dealing with men. Men, here's one thing: men are a lot more complex than you women actually sit down and consider.
No, I know y'all are. Social media, y'all are the cat's out the bag, honey.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. We're a lot more complex.
I'm gonna give Maya some game. I'm gonna give her the game that she wants. If you want men to be more compassionate, show compassion.
No. This is about being compassionate toward men.
No, I'm saying make it like normalize compassion. Make it constant. Always show compassion.
So what
normalize
I was going to say, listening to both of Haran and Damien, is they're both right. We are complicated, but also that's part of the problem is we can't have this carbon cutout of what masculinity is, and women are a big influence on men as growing up. They're the caretakers for the most part, right? So we need to, instead of telling boys that they can't cry or they can't show their emotion, because masculinity doesn't just mean you don't cry. It means a lot of other things as well. So we need to start, unfortunately, this can take a generation, but we need to start with the young people, letting them know that they can show emotion, that, if you happen to, and first of all, I want to say, it doesn't mean that like when I cry in front of a woman, it doesn't mean that I'm this mushy person that's always crying. I'm just saying you should be allowed to cry without being, well, he's kind of weak. You know what I mean? So we need to raise our kids as emotional people as well, that have emotions, and not say that you have to be this way to be a good man. You have to, not show vulnerability and things like that.
Okay,
who do you think is more important? Who do you think is more important for that to come from? Saint, women or men? Because which thing will have the greatest impact? If it was like,
yeah, I think both, but I think both for sure. But it's really bad. Like if a mother is telling their son, stop being a baby, don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about, and all this kind of stuff, you're a boy, or showing that differences, because I think we're influenced a lot by, we're influenced by both, but, in my situation, I had both my parents, but certainly I was around my mom a lot more, because my dad worked.
What is that? Who's crackling? Somebody's crackling.
I wonder if I was crackling. I don't know.
Okay. I love that. I love that advice of just normalizing compassion for men, and not thinking that they have to, always have the fucking answers, even though we like, them having the answers. But, I remember me and my ex, we cried about, he started crying about Kobe. And then I started crying about Kobe. And then we were both like crying about Kobe, and I hugged him, because it's somebody that he looked up to. I thought that was perfectly normal. I was not turned off. I wasn't like, why is he crying? I just thought that's what men do when they are hurt. They cry. Like, that's what people do in general. But, I felt like it was touching. But then there's the balance thing. You have to have balance. But I don't want to throw it back on the men, because I said this would be guys' night. I like Dame's advice. Normalize compassion. If you want a man to be compassionate, be compassionate with him, stop treating him a certain way and talking at him a certain way. I think that's something that we do a lot in our community, specifically the Black and Brown communities. We talk at men, right? We talk at men. We don't talk with them. We talk at them when they fail in a certain department. So that's another thing that we have to look at. Some women are incapable of doing that. Stay the fuck away from them, okay? Because if you entertain those women, what you do is you eventually get damaged. Then you go out in the world and you give that to another woman that does not deserve to. Stay the fuck away from those women.
Hey, can you put Maya Moon's last comment up there?
Maya Moon says, I don't think women educate themselves enough on male culture and how to embrace their interests.
I'm just curious, like, you know, if some of these women are gonna be like, you know what? I apologize. I may have set her up. I apologize. I just realized what might have happened.
Is there any data on that? You know, some people need data.
I just realized. I just thought it was a very good comment. And now, if they come for you, you can just put it on me. Just say Dame looks gay, and it'll be back on me.
I will say this. I will say one thing. I will say.
Hey, I'm gay too. You gay? You gay? No say.
Everyone's gay.
Everybody's gay.
There was that experiment in college once. I don't know.
Wait a minute.
Now that that's out the way, let's get back to everybody's gay. I'm gay too.
I mean, there's the LGTB
elemental
P. Yeah.
I actually make men gay. Remember, I stick them in the ass. I crack their ass. I make men.
Yeah.
Biggie needs to walking it back. Now she said, I just look like I'm a nice person.
I love it. I love our chat. I love our people.
Oh my God. I will say this one thing though. If a man if you notice on your man's energy, like say if he's not very communicative, you know, and you notice one day his energy seems a bit off, or he seems like he's in his head, or so on and so forth. He might be going through a number of things in his life. He might be going through a number of things that make him feel, we'll say, hopeless or powerless. If you were able to walk into that room and still make him feel that in the midst of all that, he matters to you, you will see his mood just go from here to here. And that is the jewel that I have to give you.
It's true. You know, I learned from a man that men need a cheerleader. They love the cheerleader. Like, you know, every now and then to say, you know, you're the best and I got you and we're going to do this together. You're not alone. You know, I appreciate you, you know, things like that. And I took that because, you know, a lot of times we only tell someone about themselves when they do something that we don't like. So it's equal, you know, and that's important because that's part of communication, because they don't know, they may not know, but it's equally as important to share about what they do right. And I think that goes on both parts. But I don't think men hear that enough. So I learned that from that particular gentleman, and it does make a difference. You're right, Haran. I see them realize like, oh wow, I'm not by myself. I'm not alone. You know, I am heard. I am understood. So yeah.
Versus Lily, just expecting. Well, you a man. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Versus that. Because I think women look at men that way a lot. Well, you're a man, you're supposed to be doing it. You're supposed to be paying the bills. You're supposed to be taking it. You're supposed to.
Hence, I said the number one thing society judges on is how we provide.
And there lies the disconnect, because then if you treat us in that manner, how do you expect us to be compassionate, empathetic, and so on and so forth if you can't even catch in that moment that maybe we just want you to just put your hand on our shoulder? Like, oh, okay, I'm just a utility, I'm just a resource. Okay, no problem. And then I'll just move in the manner in which this situation is transactional.
Do you feel like when it's transactional like that, do you feel like that's when a lot of men give themselves license to have extracurricular activities outside of that relationship?
Some, yeah, and you know what? Okay. a transactional situation. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you're being provided for, so on and so forth. So, you know, let me go do whatever. Because if you
somebody getting stabbed, we almost made it to the end.
Because the one thing you don't want a man want to happen to a man is that you don't want to create such an environment to create such an environment, especially at home. You don't want to create such an environment where a man turns cruel. You don't want to do that, because if you create an environment where a man turns cruel, he's going to always remember that you contributed to that feeling that he had. He'll resent you. And then you lost this dude. So yeah, you know what I mean? A lot of women out there are contributing to this, you know what I mean, culture that they claim that, you know, men engage in, and they don't even know it because they don't have the capabilities to be soft enough and understanding enough.
No,
I just wonder, like, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I like that suggestion that Maya Moon gave. I think that that's a good suggestion. We don't really know a lot about men past they like sports and, you know what I mean? They work and bring money home. We don't really know men past
that. You know,
like one time before, I guess it comes down on me also, because one time before, Jen, a girlfriend that I was dating, she caught me at a studio actually playing some Beethoven. I was actually playing it on a grand piano.
That's right.
And she didn't even know I was actually a pianist. And I didn't take the time to really explain that to her and tell her that, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I don't often talk about, you know what I mean, that stuff. So in a sense, it goes both ways. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to create the air of, you know what I mean, allowing people to connect with you and become personal. So in that context, it was kind of on me.
I just want to address Code Red real quick. He just said, Dame, ask your son. Put up Code Red, the last one. He said, Dame, ask your son if he wants the bullying to stop. If he says yes, do push-ups at home together. Violence stops bullying. You know what? I'm going to agree with that. Everybody, I agree with that. The last time somebody bullied me when I was in school, my brother said, punch him in the face. He'll never bully you again. And it worked exactly like that. He's just not built like that because he ain't been around that. And his thing is, he's actually, I don't know if he's more like developed as far as than I am, if I want to say it, you know, because his is, he has a this too shall pass kind of attitude. Oh, you know, his was, well, with that situation with that kid, he was like, well, I only have one more week at this school anyway, so I'll be gone, so it's not a big deal.
He's smart,
you know. That's the way his mind thinks. Yeah, you know, so he's way more like emotionally intelligent than I was. Mine was somebody say step to you, punch me. His is this too shall pass. I will get through it. It's not going to stop my progression. I just, as a father, I just don't want to see it happen to him. So that's why. And I offered him. I was like, hey, there was, you know, there's a jujitsu dojo like a couple of miles away, and I was like, you want to take jujitsu? He was just like, no, I'd rather, you know, study and blah, blah, blah. My youngest son was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to punch him in the face, you know, that kind of shit. But it was just like, it's just not who he is. I appreciate you saying it. And I said, I absolutely agree, but he's just not him. And I don't want to turn him to that if he's not that.
Yeah, I agree and I disagree at the same time. I agree it would stop. Like, I'll give you an example. I was picking on a guy in junior high. And one day on the bus, he got up and socked me in the chin. Now, it didn't hurt me at all because he was kind of weak, right? But it stopped me from. I respected him for it. But at the same time,
so you were a bully. You were a bully.
I was briefly, man. And then I got to a school where.
But the real bullies was that.
Then I got to a school. There were bigger bullies than me, but I wasn't really a bully. I was just picking on this kid that, you know, was one of the kids that got picked on. And we became friends after that. I respected him. Like, well, hell, you know, he punched me in the jaw. But what I want to say is it'll stop that in school. But when you get into business world, that doesn't work anymore.
So that's where I was about.
And those people are still going to be there. Those, they're, even though you're adults, they will find something, and, you know, and then you got to be more of an adult about it. And there's other avenues, but Yeah.
So, you know, that's where I was about to go with it next, because what my dad did with me was, see, you know, kids are different. Like Dane was saying, kids are different. My brother, fighter, you ain't got to tell him once. Like his raising was a little different. His was, my mother and my dad had to make sure, don't hit, like, do your best not to hit him. Don't start any fights. Just don't start any fights. You can finish them and you'll be good. You won't be in trouble. Just don't start any fights. You start a fight, you be a bully, then you're in trouble. With me, it was more of like, you had to push me, right? And my dad made sure that not only did I know the physical, but I knew how to deal with it psychologically as well. Because the thing is, my dad is blind in one eye, and he's been blind since he was a kid in one eye. And no one knew that, but he always looked at it as a impediment for fighting. So my dad he tried to avoid fights as best as possible growing up in the worst part of DC. So he said that his mind got him out of fights, you know, and so my dad was like, you have to learn how to fight with your fists and fight with your mind, because when you get older, like No Saint said, it's going to be less about the physical and more about the psychological and mental when you get into the corporate world or the work world, if you become an entrepreneur. So it's kind of best to know a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I jokingly said, like, to him, to my wife about him, I was like saying, I just got to tell him, you know, just make a bunch of money, buy the company he works for, and be his boss. And you know, just and all the bullies, you'll be the boss. You, like, you know, I'm sure Jeff Bezos was bullied as a kid, but now ain't nobody bullying him. I was like, be their boss. Like, you know, stop at the fast food restaurant that they're working at on your way to your ski trip with your family. Be that, you know, have a good life. Be you know, show them